Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you're watching third part of What If Kid Naruto was trained by a forgotten abyss demon. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The two children rubbed their faces against Naruto's cheeks and started purring while he sat there. When they were younger, did these two believe he was their uncle? Whoa. Discuss the unexpected. Who are they exactly? She merely sighed, putting his hands behind his head and reclined on the couch in response to Naruto's question. Let's see. I'm first, followed by Akio and then the twins. They're essentially my younger brother and sister. And your sister. And brother.in.law, though they're not old enough yet. Thus, you are temporarily their uncle. Shutting his eyes, Shishi muttered. In the meantime, the two small children were giving Naruto tight hugs. After removing them from his head, he places Nell on his left lap and Shippo on his right. Hi there. Naruto said, why don't you two introduce yourselves properly? With kindness. The two children excitedly nodded and jumped. Me. You can call me Nell, but my name is Nalil. I like my mother, my brother, the color green, and the smell of roses. They have a pleasant scent. One day, I hope to be just like my mother. I dislike it when people make fun of me. It makes weeds. Additionally, pevets. Mother says, pevets are wicked. Near the end, she pouted. Naruto laughed and turned to face Shippo. Hey, my name is Shippo. I enjoy pranking, candy, and my mother, I detest being grounded, broccoli, and Chi-Chi going crazy. It's Shishi brat, Shishi yelled. That's what I said. Shippo spoke naively. Shishi crossed his arms and scowled, choosing to try to ignore the little moron. Anyways, I like the color blue, and I want to be awesome like Chi-Chi. Sama when I'm older. Shishi grinned in response. Being the only shadow. Capable of using their unadulterated strength to vanquish adversaries in a clan that valued cunning and stealth was pretty awesome. Leaving aside his problem, when he lost it. He wasn't truly insane, he was just attacking at full speed without stopping to think. Is that accurate? Naruto said, well, how about staying for breakfast? The children exclaimed, yeah, and dashed into the kitchen. Before assisting them, Naruto soon heard them conversing with Kyuubi and Akio. Primarily by consuming the majority of the food before it was ready. Shishi mumbled, smiling, nice kids. They have some potential even though they're troublemakers. Shippo is a good fighter and could become my apprentice because of his strength and speed. Nell might make a good assassin because she can be quiet when necessary. Nell abruptly exclaimed, yup. From behind Shishi's head. Shishi let out a startled cry before lunging straight upward and hitting his head against the ceiling. He descended once more and landed in the center of the space. Hey. Ni. Sama rose and then fell. Hein. Goodbye. With a chuckle, Nell hurried back to the kitchen. Shishi got up and muttered something about stupid midgets. Now let's get back to work. For the time being, my mother wants me to look after those two. Most likely a year or so. You see, nobody was too alarmed the first year Kyuubi Sama was gone, Naruto said, raising an eyebrow. Every new Kyuubi typically takes a year or so off from leadership. The last Kyuubi title holder even took a 5-year vacation. But after Kyuubi Sama vanished 6 years ago, they started to worry and dispatched some demons to investigate. Being the kind girl that she is, Akio attempted to assist and nearly perished. So some of us were almost sent to track you down and rip Kyuubi Sama from your gut, now that they know where Kyuubi Sama is and what trouble she's in. I supported Akio when she swiftly stopped them because she didn't want them to hurt you. After all, Akio doesn't choose to defend a person every day. She stated that she would monitor you or something, but it is clear that her intention was simply to be with you constantly. And as of right now, the elders and old rugs have chosen to appoint a new Kyuubi. They essentially gave up on Aunt Hikari and concluded it would be best to make a different choice. Wait a second. Naruto cut him off. Are you saying Q-chan's name isn't Q-chan? Not at all. You see, for whatever reason, when someone pronounces you Kyuubi, you lose your name until someone else does. That, among other things, Kyuubi will always remain Kyuubi and that only their family members will use their birth name. As I mentioned earlier, the demon world is a flurry of activity as they attempt to select a new Kyuubi. Mom suggested that I bring the kids here for a quick getaway. Anyhow, the ones with 7 tails and more are vying for the title right now. At least, a portion of them. My mother simply avoids the situation and works to limit the harm. It's a pain in the ass overall. A new Kyuubi, a quiet voice appeared behind Naruto. He looked surprised to see Hikari there. Hikari. Chan? Naruto inquired. Though he didn't know her name, Kyuubi nodded. I apologize for not informing you sooner. It escaped my notice, Naruto-kun. She expressed regret. Apologize not. It's all right. With a comforting smile, Naruto gave her a little flush to her cheeks. I brought the twins here for that reason. Are you satisfied with the explanation? Shishi finished, finally relaxing and closing his eyes. Unwise decision. Nell yelled, Chichi. Ni. Sama, into his left ear. He let out a yelp and found himself suspended from the kitchen chandelier, his 6 tails bare and the hair standing on end. Nell burst out laughing. He gave her a glare and the hairs returned to normal as she waved at him. Sawi ni. Sama. He snarled, you sure don't look sorry, little twerp. He felt something yank one of his tails, and he yelled again. Shippo. Ni. Sama, get down. Swinging from his tail, the little demon exclaimed. It's Tim Fo, Bewekfist. Shishi complained, but gave in and started to descend. The family settled down to eat pancakes, beef jerky, and bacon after that little incident. Naruto grinned, thinking that this was how he had always imagined a family to be. He was happy even though his 2 lovers had taken the place of his parents. He would savor the sensation for the time being. Later on in time, now that the sun was shining, the kids were outside, and Shishi was looking for something. Naruto was hopping from roof to roof on his way to the hospital while carrying a handful of flowers. Oh my god. Before swiftly tackling Shishi in the middle of the street, Naruto quickly created a shadow clone and gave it the flowers. Naruto yelled, no, you fool. As he firmly grasped Shishi's fur. You can't have any as long as me and Sakura are around. Oh, please, hurry up, only for a short while? No. How about 2? Really humorous. Return now and tend to Nell and Shippo. Naruto gave the command. Shishi returned to the estate and resumed babysitting, complaining even more. Naruto sighed, but for the time being at least Konoha was safe from a raging Shishi. Before the clone scattered, he went back to it, collected the flowers, and continued on his way. Once more, he was blind to the eyes staring at him with a mix of jealousy and hate. Medical facility. When Hanata saw Naruto leap through the open window and land next to her holding a bouquet of flowers, she was pretty much overjoyed. She could tell they weren't from the Yamanaka flower shop because of how lovely they were. He claimed it was from the Yondaime estate, his new residence. His response to Hanata's question about why he lived there was a simple smile and, all in due time, Hanata. Chan. S.SOYD. Did you come? N. Naruto.kun. She timidly stammered. Naruto's smile broadened a little. Regardless of how much time went by, her stuttering persisted. Hey, at least he wasn't whining. Along with her blush, it was actually the cutest thing he had ever seen her do. Well, after giving it some thought, I realized that you don't really know much about the real me. So, shall we begin with the customary introductions? Said Naruto. I am Uzumaki Naruto. My new family, ramen, and training are my likes. People who are conceited, rapists, those who would harm my loved ones, and when my brother loses control are things I detest. Sword playing, spending time with loved ones, hanging out with Konohamaru, and spending the night outside are some of my hobbies. Please, it's your turn. Hyuga Hanata is my name. I enjoy my family, y.u, and circa cinnamon buns. The last bit was almost whispered, but Naruto heard it and grinned at her. I detest those who would harm you, rapists, and caged birds in seals. My interests include cooking, spending time with kids, and honing my Jiyuken. With shyness, she said. Good to know you haven't changed much, Hanata. Chan. Happily, Naruto remarked. I suppose I should tell you something else now. I hold Kyuubi, as you are aware, and I can access all of her Yuki. Well, I found a way to heal you much faster, but involves me biting your neck, Hanata says, nodding. In essence, I must mark you. Naruto laughed shamefacedly and said. She already knew what marking was from Kiba, who explained that it functions similarly to receiving a ring. Images flashed through Hanata's mind. causing her to blush wildly. Unfortunately, they weren't exactly the world's most innocent objects. She was so red in the face that a tomato would have been pale in comparison that she passed out almost 15 seconds after those images entered her mind. That's a new record, wow. She usually faints after 10 seconds, muttered Naruto, grinning. He approached her and gave her a quick peck on the lips. Hanata. Chan, sweet dreams. Speak to you soon, he muttered. He sighed and muttered, what are you doing here, as he turned to leave. Just curious why you had flowers. Shishi spoke casually. He was seated in one of the chairs, but to make it cozier, he added some shadows to the surface. That is to say, it was constructed from a black stone, had several animal pelts on it, and had an eye hanging from one of the heads surrounding it. Overall, a very commanding presence. But the two children on either shoulder ruined the picture. They leapt off right away, landing on Naruto, hugging and laughing uncontrollably. Shippo leapt over to sit on one of the chairs after spotting Hanata. Who's she? The naive boy inquired. Hyuga Hanata is her name. If she agrees, she could become one of my friends. After answering, Naruto turned to face Shishi. So how's being a babysitter feel? Shishi muttered, like shit, before realizing he had actually said it aloud and his eyes grew wide. Nell soon showed up beside him, carrying a jar filled with cash. Shishi murmured, crap. And then inserted some money. Nell merely laughed and returned to Hanata, prodding the dozing girl nonetheless. Shishi was asked by Naruto, what was that all about? She started doing this last year, sigh. Shay LL get out her handy, cup, and demand money every time she hears someone swear. She will persistently ask for payment until you give it to her. The worst part, Shishi said, is that her mother actually concurs. Nodding, Naruto made a mental note to watch what he said while Nell was around. You know, I don't think this girl is what you think she is. Not much to see here, save for the lovely figure. Naruto gave him a menacing growl. She's kind to me and everyone around her, which is why I love her. When I start training her, she has the potential to become a great shinobi as well, since the Jiyuken isn't fluid enough for her. I ought to pair it with the black fist, I suppose. Not to add, I think she'll be a tremendous person. Okay. With a placatory gesture, Shishi said while raising his arms. Sorry for saying anything. For an instant, the only sound in the room was that of the kids tinkering with various objects they had discovered. Shishi suddenly had a perverted smile on his face. But I've heard the timid ones are screamers. Yes, I did meet this girl who. Naruto yelled, shut up, as he tackled Shishi and strangled the demon after it attempted to strike him with a chair. The two children simply ignored it. Elderly folks are very strange. Konohagakure. In the midnight hour, Naruto was overjoyed this evening. Perhaps not exactly joyful, more like relieved. He preferred the darkness because it allowed him to feel what was happening. He had a sixth sense, so nothing happened to him without his knowledge. Regretfully, it possessed certain abilities that you wish you had known about, just like many other abilities. He found out a lot of things he wishes he had never known. Such as the number of moans in a single night, whether in a couple or by themselves. He shuddered at the thought and carried on. He enjoyed feeling the wind on his arms and face, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, and just being free. He heard two people talking as he was crossing a random alleyway, but he chose to ignore them. But he came to a complete stop when he heard what one of them had to say. You know you can't just go thanking some Konoha scum, kin. What will Orochimaru Sama think should he find out? He'll more than likely use you as a guinea pig, murmured a man. Somewhere, Naruto was certain he heard that voice. A girl's voice whispered, I know, but I owe him for saving me. Besides, you're lucky he let both of us live. When Naruto recognized it, it was Kin, the Auto. Kunoichi. The sound of someone being struck was followed by a yelp. With a swift movement, he ducked beneath the rooftop he was standing on and peered down at the alley, where he saw Kin lying on the ground with a slightly red face and the mummy guy glaring down at her with an uplifted hand. He was clearly the one who slapped her, causing Naruto to snarl in pain. The mummy guy apparently heard the growling and started to scan his surroundings. Dosu yelled, Who's there? Show yourself. Just before he heard a monotone voice, he heard something suddenly land next to him. Dosu turned to look, but there was nobody there. I'm here. Now let's see if you can see me. From behind him, a voice said, Not there. He looked again, but he was unable to identify the voice's origin. The voice called out above him, "Up here." Looking up, he saw Red Queen hanging from Naruto's thumb and index finger, perched on a horizontal spike of shadow about 3 feet above Dosu's head. When Naruto released the sword, the blade was ready to pierce Dosu's eye. "Now, please apologize to the lady and there's a chance you will live. Right after telling me what you know of the snake pedophile, of course." Naruto sighed. Dosu swallowed, trying to look tough. When Naruto unleashed a burst of ki, Dosu nearly passed out. "Why would I tell you anything, twerp? And why should I apologize to her when it is she who is showing weakness?" Dosu demanded. Kin hugged herself and shuddered. The world felt incredibly cold all of a sudden. "Because if you don't, I'll gut you alive and let you live most of my life through a trick I learned from a friend of mine. Would you like to know what Konoha does to children who are different?" Naruto said quietly. Dosu could tell that Naruto didn't want to go through that by the lifeless expression in his eyes. "Believe me. You won't believe how many times they've skinned my arms with knives, stabbed my lungs with kunai, beaten my head with hammers, burned my legs with jutsu. The list goes on, and I just told you the mild ones. Would you like to go through the most horrible ones yourself?" "Well, up until I was 7, of course. 6 years of torture will probably kill your brain," murmured Naruto. His voice had been monotonous the entire time, giving Dosu the chills. He briefly had an image of a scythe next to Naruto. He would be a terrifying Shinigami. Dosu thought, "I wonder if he's blessed by death or something," as his body trembled with terror. Kin, in the meantime, was staring at Naruto, stunned by what he had just said. A person experiencing all that. Was he truly handled that way? "I think he's bluffing, however. His eyes have such dead," she pondered to herself. That's when the unsettling stuff started. Naruto's clothes turned completely black, and eyes and mouths protruded from them as well as from the spike he was sitting on. "Surrender now, and tell me what I want to know. I have learned greatly to torture thanks to this village's combined creativity," the demon Naruto said. Even the blade he was holding shifted slightly. It turned black with red glass. Like cracks where it had once been red with silver vine designs. It appeared to her that the shadows behind him were the shape of wings. Appearing like a disgruntled fallen angel, he was prepared to murder Dosu. To ascertain his desires. And to force Dosu to give her an apology. That appeared to be. It was kind of nice, but also a little frightening. Dosu croaked in fear, What are you?" Naruto merely smiled at him, his teeth turning into fangs. "I am Uzumaki. Namikaze Naruto, the future Hokage, Abyss Hanyu. And your worst nightmare. I am the one Shinigami. Sama wants dead, but he won't let me die. I am the one hated by humans, yet started off as one of them. I am the child who never had a childhood, and matured faster than others," Naruto said to him, the blade now pressing slightly against Dosu's forehead. Naruto raised an eyebrow and said, "Now, will you tell me what I want to know? Or must I show you my childhood?" Kin said, barely audible above a whisper, I'll talk." Turning to face her, Naruto's ki stopped as if it had run into a wall. Suddenly, Naruto's aura shifted from being menacing to being calming, and she stopped feeling so afraid. She was carried by a hand made of darkness as the shadows beneath her lifted and she found herself in front of Naruto. Naruto said politely as he started acting normally, "Please, tell me what I want to know." Kin gave a nod and immediately began to spill, unable to take her eyes off of him. "So Suna has decided to betray us. Guess it's fair since we have been keeping them on a leash recently. I wish someone like me didn't have to become a weapon in all of this. Now, please come with me. We must speak with Hokage Sama and prepare for your invasion. But first..." Naruto thought for a moment. Glancing back at Dosu, he applied a little more pressure with the sword, causing Dosu to recoil. He said, "Please apologize." Dosu stammered, almost peeing himself, Kin, I am sorry I hit you. Please forgive me." Kin simply gave him a nod, letting Naruto know that he could set him free. The blonde then extended a hand to Kin, who cautiously accepted it before the two vanished in an instant. Dosu was left standing there, staring at the location where Naruto and Kin had been just a moment earlier, his forehead still bleeding. Unsure of the veracity of what he had just witnessed, he simply stood there. Thus, permanently damaged, he made his way back to the inn where he was staying. Office of the Hokage. All ninja referred to Sarutobi Hiruzen as the professor. Therefore, the moment he saw a red flash and Naruto and a girl appear in front of him, only he possessed the knowledge, expertise, and quickness to conceal his icha. ICHA book. Everything that happens both during and just before the flash fades. The man lied with professionalism, saying, "Ah, Naruto.kun. I was just working on some paperwork, so please make this quick." With an indifferent expression, Naruto said, "There are no papers on your desk." Sarutobi most likely would have told a logical lie, but Naruto went on. Naruto said solemnly, "Listen Hokage. Sama, Kin here has some information you will need to know." With a raised eyebrow and a stooped posture, the elderly Hokage paid attention to his substitute grandson and his most trusted associate. Hiruzen rubbed his temples and sighed after hearing the details. Kin's eyes widened, and the Hokage muttered, "This is most troubling. However, I must first take care of you, Miss Tsuchi." "Fantastic. I will be confined to a cell by them. Even worse, return me to Orochimaru. Okami, please put me in a cell if you truly do care about us humans." Kin thought as her breathing became labored. As soon as Naruto realized this, his expression softened. With a neutral tone, Naruto uttered, "If I may, Hokage. Sama. I would like for Kin to be under my protection." Sarutobi considered this for a while. Having his book in his left sleeve made him really not want to deal with this. But it hurts a lot to be the Hokage. Again, that was final. His village came first. With a single hand gesture, Sarutobi activated a sound-proof seal and a privacy seal. Although I cannot do that because of her now being a missing nin, betraying her village, and the many other laws, I can do something. Close enough. I'm afraid Kin will need to be your slave for her to have any protection, Naruto. It was fortunate that he applied the silencing seal right after Naruto finished his explanation, because that's when Kin let out a loud, "What?" "As I said, it's the only way to keep you unharmed, Kin-san. Besides, Naruto here is the only one I trust enough. Of course, you will need a seal placed on you to mark you as his." Sarutobi sighed. He had to choose his words carefully because the blinding rage of the female gender was too much even for the Hokage to handle. Naturally, this was not very helpful. Kin's face was flushed, her hands clenched. He couldn't tell, though, if it was out of embarrassment or rage. Naruto's eyes widened, revealing a red face full of embarrassment. Nervously, Naruto said, You sure there's no other way, Gigi?" To be honest, when he set out to protect Kin, this wasn't exactly what he had in mind. "I'm sorry, Naruto, but it's either this or I must send her to be interrogated, put her in a cell, or just plain out kill her." The elderly gentleman was serious. With a sigh, Naruto nodded while keeping Kin's face red. Kin nervously asked, "You sure there are no other options?" Kin simply sighed, and Sarutobi shook his head. Shivering a little at the end, she mumbled, "Fine. I'll be his slave." It wasn't that she detested it, to be honest. She simply did not want to be viewed as a piece of property or as being any less human. She muttered, "Okay then, let's get this over with. Where do I need the seal?" The two set out to find that she and the twins weren't at Naruto's house after sealing Kin. While Hikari was meditating in the living room, Akio was in the kitchen cleaning a few items. She appeared to be focusing on something. Even though it was still nighttime, Akio liked the darkness. Her only periods of sleep were mostly during the day, though occasionally they were at night. When he walked in, it was a good thing their fox features were hidden. Naruto called out, "Hello Hikari. Chan, Akio. Chan. We kinda have a new, family member." Looking up, both girls approached Kin with appropriate greetings. She gave them a smile, but it was clear that something was bothering her. Hikari inquired courteously, "Is there something wrong, Kin-san?" She spoke tremblingly, kinda became Naruto. Sama's slave. The two demonesses remained silent for a moment, then Akio smiled and Hikari moved away from her niece. That look was familiar to her, and she felt sorry for the poor human girl. Akio asked Naruto, "So she now lives here, right?" And Naruto nodded. Though hesitant, Naruto nodded when he asked, "And she has to do what we say, right?" Gradually. So, she snapped, snatching Kin's wrist and racing upstairs for a little talking. "I feel like this is not right," murmured Naruto. The following morning, the sun beating down on Naruto's face caused him to groan as he started to wake up. He mumbled, still cursing the sun and its light, "Fuck you, Mr. Sun." I shall end your bitching existence here and this earth shall have a never-ending fucking night. Glancing down, he saw his vixens on either side of him once more. But he became aware of severe stomach pain. He looked up and saw why. Shippo and Nell were present. And Nell, with a serious look on her adorable little face, had her cup out. Naruto sighed and gestured to his pants at the foot of the bed. He complains, "My wallet's in there." The twins smile, then head to the pants and grab the required cash. Then, Shishi shows up, his eyes sympathetic. "Try to keep a hold of your cussing. You'll save a lot of money that way. Believe me," said Shishi. After nodding, Naruto once more cursed the sun and filling Nell and Shippo's cup with more cash. Following that, they all got up and started eating breakfast as usual. Naruto grinned at the sight of a family in front of him once more. Shishi and the twins unexpectedly approached him in their fox forms as he was leaving to train. The twins were nearly identical to Akio, standing barely a foot tall. Apart from that, they wore a tiny, barely perceptible vest with their names written in red kanji. He asked sharply, "And where do you three think you're going?" As if making a weather forecast, Shishi said, "We're going to raid a store to see how good these two are." Naruto abruptly stopped using hand signals and said, "No you're not." After completing the seals, Naruto declared, "Shadow. Style. Chain snake." He then slams his hand down on Shishi, instantly entangling the fox in black chains. Shishi snarled, "Damn you, Uzumaki." He quickly regretted what he had said. He looked up to see Shippo with the cup in his small paws. Shishi rolled his eyes and then slid his tail out to insert cash. The fact that it came from the Uzumaki's wallet surprised Naruto. "There you go, now leave me be." After, perched atop a tower, in the center of the Forest of Death, were Naruto and Shishi. They silently agreed that from now on, that would serve as their own training ground. Shishi said, "Okay, Uzumaki." As a large scroll materialized from a shadow portal that appeared next to him, Shishi exclaimed, "Today is the day something super special happens. I'm gonna give you this." It had a fox's form wrapped around the entire scroll and was black with red edges. When Shishi opened it, he gestured to the first available slot. Shishi gave the order, "Write your name in blood here." After nodding and biting his thumb, Naruto followed instructions. Pointing to the area beneath his name, Shishi said, "Now place your fingerprints here." Naruto noticed that his name was the only one there and did the same. "There hasn't been any summoners before me, has there?" he inquired. With a sigh, Shishi shook his head. "We never really had a reason to help a human before. We just come here by our own will, sometimes staying with a human until the human dies. Believe me, we've tried multiple times to make humans immortal so we can be with them forever. But no one can do that except Kyuubi Sama, and even then the human will only love the Kyuubi." Shishi sighed. Naruto nodded, his expression serious. He was aware that, compared to Hanata and Kin, he would likely live twice as long, but that Hikari and Akio would not. To get his thoughts straight, he shook his head. It was not the moment to consider that. He learned the hand signals from Shishi, who also informed him that calling any kind of fox would require blood. "Less. We got a bunch, like water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, shadow, snow, forest, and poison. That's the ones I know of anyway," Shishi replied. With a nod, Naruto ran through the hand signs, biting his already healed thumb, and yelled, "Summoning jutsu," before he and Shishi were engulfed in a cloud of smoke. "Who called for me?" yelled a loud, deep voice that almost knocked Naruto off his now moving ground. Standing behind him was a large black furred fox with 8 tails that stood nearly 8 feet tall, on top of Naruto and Shishi. The fox asked, "Shishi, what are you doing here?" after taking one look at the atmosphere. Shishi yelled, "What's up, Uncle Gur?" "Naruto, meet my Uncle Gur." He was once the guardian to hell, but was fired when he slept in on the job and consequently let go of a dozen or so souls. "That was not my fault. You're the one who broke my alarm clock. Now, who is this human with you? A snack for me?" yelled Gur. After leaping and landing in front of the fox, Naruto gave him a respectful bow. With dignity, Naruto stood up and said, "Hello. My name is Uzumaki. Namikaze Naruto. And Shishi gave me the summoning contract for me to sign. It's an honor to meet you, Gur-san." Gur gave him a brief blink before turning to face Shishi. The big fox remarked, "Well, at least he has manners." With a simple shrug, Shishi leapt down beside Naruto. "So why did you summon me, boy?" "I honestly don't see any battles to be fought," the big fox replied. "Well, I just barely signed the contract and figured I'd give it a spin." "Huh. No offense, but I thought the foxes would be perhaps, I dunno, bigger." "Not as Shadow.Fox. We're a bit smaller so we can help in stealth and quick attacks. I'm sure you know by now that Shishi is mostly frontal attack. Nearly on par with an Earth.Fox of 7 tails." Gur replied, gaining the approval of Naruto. "Very well then, Naruto-san. I will tell the other foxes that we finally have a new summoner. I hope to see you soon and to help you in battle." Gur nodded and vanished in a column of smoke. "Likewise, Gur-san. Also, please tell the other foxes that I might need them for an upcoming invasion in my home. About 50 foxes will do, please." While Shishi was chewing on a piece of dog treat, nothing happened for a few minutes. Then Shishi pulled another scroll with a blue background, yellow outline, and star decorations out of his coat. "Listen well, Uzumaki. This scroll is only meant for me, because it's actually the contract to only one summon. He only needs to be used in times of war. Only summon him when there is no alternative, understood?" replied Shishi. His face was devoid of any smile for once. Heck, when he was making jokes with someone, there wasn't that much light in his eyes. It was all seriousness. With a nod, Naruto unfolded the scroll. There was only Shishi's name, the kanji a gray hue. Naruto's actions on the previous scroll were repeated, causing the blood to turn black, glow, and then dim. Naruto inquired, "So, who does this summon?" "A good friend of mine that was supposed to be destroyed, but yours truly prevented it and instead made him a summon behind the others' backs. I keep him a secret from everyone else because they fear that he would become rampant and begin destroying everything he touches should he live. Heck, that's mostly what he's for. But don't get me wrong, he's actually a sweet little thing. Except when he's armed, then you're screwed. Other than that, summon him to get to know him," Shishi clarified. Naruto nodded, then proceeded to bite his thumb, making hand signals, and yelling, "Summoning jutsu." Just as before, a thick cloud of smoke enveloped the tower. When Naruto looked up, he noticed blue ears and lustrous black eyes. Hokage Tower. Afterwards, with a mumble, Naruto examined the letter he received via bird message. "You can't be serious. It seems that the Hokage recently informed him that the new Mizukage, along with his spouse, daughter, step-son, and father.in.law, Wave Mayor, would be attending the Chunin examinations. Didn't the last Mizukage support the purge of the bloodline? He merely hoped that the new one was not the same, or else it would appear that he had sent Zabuza and Haku to their deaths. It seems so, Naruto-kun. And apparently, the Mizukage knows you and wants you to marry his daughter as a sign of peace between Konoha and Kirigakure," replied the Hokage. Naruto was blinking at him, as if to indicate that Shishi had discovered the item that drove the demon insane. Naruto muttered, again, "You can't be serious," once more. "Also, I tried to tell them there would be a small war here to perhaps change their mind. Unfortunately, this only made them bring extra shinobi to help out," Sarutobi said while massaging his temples. Quote dot 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 quote quote dot 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 quote quote dot 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 quote quote dot 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 quote. Naruto complained, "Well, shit on a stick." Though he could only see Shippo and Nell's tiny eyes in the back of his mind, he was relieved they weren't present, and that container. Hayate was astounded by what he had just heard and seen. Suna and Otto are not the only ones attacking. The Dosu child was just killed by that Gaia girl. He thought, "I better tell Hokage Sama," and turned to walk out. Hayate realized he had to leave at that moment when Baki, the Suna siblings sensei, said, "I'll take care of our little eavesdropper, as a sign of our allegiance." Before long, he was heading across rooftops, attempting to dispel the sensei of the Suna, Genin. Queer guy, isn't he? He pondered. Suddenly, he was on the verge of running into his pursuers who had materialized in front of him. He pulled out his sword and charged, aiming to cut the Jonin's shoulder. But it was ineffective because his blade was lodged in the man's vest. "Swords are good, but wind swords are much stronger," Baki remarked, holding up a wind blade with his right hand. A shadowy fist struck the Suna Jonin from behind, uttering the words, "Indeed." Next to Hayate, Naruto materialized, snatching his arm before glancing at Baki. Before he captured Hayate with Hireishin, Naruto gave him the command to stay, as if he were a child. With a growl, Baki fled back to the inn to brace himself for what might come. Examining Chunin. Beyond the stadium, in addition to being shocked that the new Mizukage and his family were arriving, the entire village was looking forward to watching the ninja fight. Some stores had reopened, some had closed, and some had just set up temporary stands near the stadium. Ichiraku just so happened to have one of the latter. Ayame handed the blonde Hanyu another bowl, saying, "You know Naruto-kun." Naruto simply kept happily devouring his 8th bowl, saying, "You might be late for the exams if you don't hurry up." "Are you kidding me? I haven't had ramen in a whole 37 hours. That's unacceptable, and I have to eat some or else I won't have my strength for the fight." Naruto was trying to rationalize. One thing was true even after he removed his mask. His ramen addiction. It was so good, damn it. "Yeah well, you got like 10 minutes before it's time." Naruto grinned, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm almost done." After finishing his meal, he headed for the stadium on foot. In all honesty, it was not even a block away. Just as he was about to arrive, he noticed the dark blue hair behind a post and his nose picked up a familiar scent. "Ah, this is Hina-chan. Better pay her a visit." Having made up his mind, he vanished in an instant, frightening the living daylights out of a couple of bystanders who were staring at him. As before, he materialized behind the Hyuga heiress and gave her a back hug, though he paid particular attention to her chest and stomach. After all, she was still injured. "Hello Hina-chan. I was wondering where have you been. So how's my favorite Hyuga heiress doing?" replied Naruto. She said, F. Fine, and Naruto. K.kun. She gave Naruto a quick pinch before continuing to stroll beside him. I wanted to ask you something, Naruto.kun. "Shoot. I know why. You want to T revenge on Neji. N.ni.san. B. But I was hopping Y.uw. Wouldn't," she murmured. Stillness. Hanata was dying of curiosity about her crush, future husband's thoughts, and the silence was killing her. Finally, Naruto spoke. Naruto, growing irritated, said, "Excuse me Hanata, but I don't think I heard right. Did you just say you don't want me killing Neji?" It's true that he had no animosity toward Hanata. But after everything the Sanava bitch did, her wish for him to spare Neji was not something he was fond of right now. Thus, I will not be able to murder him for all that he did to my Hanata-chan. That's a whole lot of bullshit, it occurred to Naruto. She answered, turning in his arms and resting her gentle hands on his chest. "Why? Yes. Please, nah. Naruto.kun. Yes, she realized what she was doing, and in a normal situation, she most likely would have passed out. But despite how much he denigrated her, she still cared for her cousin, so this was very important to her. She genuinely didn't want Naruto to get hurt or for her cousin to be badly hurt by him. Innocently, Naruto asked, "Can I maim him?" Hanata attempted to glare at him. She did, in fact. However, given her gorgeous face and the blush, it appeared more like a pout. Yet the intended outcome was still achieved. "Fine. But don't think he's coming out with anything less of broken bones and bruises. Nobody hurts those close to me. That includes you, and I want that to be a clear message to all of the people watching." Naruto continued with determination. Hanata grinned at Naruto's immature behavior, but she reluctantly agreed. Next, as they made their way to the stadium, Naruto made sure Hanata was seated before starting to enter the arena. "This'll suck. Now I can't kill him in a super awesome way like I planned," he murmured. A voice from behind him asked, "Does that mean you're ready for your fight?" Turning around, he was about to reply when he recognized the person, as well as her attire. Within the stadium, I was aware that he wouldn't appear. Neji held his head high, thinking, it would seem he finally realized he cannot defy fate. The others were there and Naruto had not appeared. Sakura was also late, though. At that moment, a black mist descended upon the arena, enveloping every competitor. Since they were prepared for any threats, everyone was on high alert. A gust of wind materialized out of nowhere, gathering the black mist in the arena's center. The dark haze started to take shape, hardened, became colored, and eventually stopped to reveal the two contestants who had arrived. One of them had undergone a radical transformation, primarily, the Haruno girl. Now, she was dressed in a full body fishnet suit that reached her wrists and ankles, very similar to Anko's. Wearing black sandals, a gray skirt with slits down both legs, black fingerless gloves that stopped short of her elbows, and a black sleeveless shirt that ended above her stomach were all worn over that. Beside her, she held Shishi's sword form, the blade resting just a little bit against her body. And her hair, what a mess. With only 2 pink bangs framing her face and a few bands dividing her hair into 6 tails, with pink tips, her hair was mostly dyed black. Her left leg was slightly longer than her right, and her left arm was resting on her hip. Beside her, Naruto was crouching with one hand on the ground and the other slung over Red Queen's guard with the blade driven into the earth. Although Kitsune was also stabbed in the ground, he was leaning on it to support his back and was grinning at Neji. Overall, the two shadow wielders had a really awesome appearance. Sakura kindly inquired, "Are we not late, are we?" However, if you listen carefully, you'll hear that she essentially insisted on being told. The proctor said, No, you're not." It was no longer Hayate, Naruto noticed. Alright. He thought, I don't want that guy targeted because of last night, as he noticed Baki glaring at him from the stands. With a feral smile, Naruto turned back to face the proctor in front of him. "Should we start?" he inquired. While all of this was going on, Naruto glanced up at the cage dotbox and saw that the Mizukage and his family were seated a few seats to Sarutobi's right. The proctor nodded before clearing his throat and stating, "Very well then, first off, my name is Genma. The rules are the same as the preliminaries. You're either out when I say so, your opponent is knocked out or killed. Now with no further words to be exchanged, the matches shall begin soon." He appeared rather tall, with a large, seemingly new cleaver blade, and wore the traditional grayish green cage robes. Not to add, it appeared as though Naruto's gaze expanded. That blade was nearly as tall as the possessor, with a semicircle above the guard and a hole near the tip. It resembled Zabuza's blade exactly. And he also observed that aspect of the Mizukage. He could see his black hair and the bandages covering his lower half of his face through the hat. And without a raised eyebrow, Naruto's jaw was hanging open. He was the one. And the new Mizukage was Zabuza. Holy crap. Now that I know the Mizukage. But wait, Sarutobi. Gigi claimed to be wed. Who is it to? Then he noticed Zabuza holding Tsunami's hand, the stunning woman donning a sophisticated kimono. Oh. I see. Then who's his dog? In response, he saw an equally stylish Haku grinning at him while wearing a kimono. Whoa. Naruto moaned to himself. I don't think I have to check to know the other two are Inari and old man Tazuna. As it turned out, Inari and Tazuna were also present, beaming at Naruto. Inari continued to wear his fisherman's hat despite donning a robe that didn't seem to suit him. But when Naruto saw the 4-foot tall blade resting against the boy's chair, he began to wonder if Zabuza was teaching the youngster. In addition, he saw that the boy's hand was still close to the knife's handle in case he needed to use it, still resting on his left hip. Tazuna appeared significantly more tidy than when he was last seen, and he was sober, surprised. In addition, he appeared to be carrying a cane with a bird-shaped silver handle while donning a pricey suit. Would you look at that? Naruto wondered. Zabuza appears to have at last realized his dream. In addition, he has a family. Worried, Naruto thought, I just hope they don't get hurt when the invasion starts. At that moment, he turned back to face the proctor. He declared, will everyone go up to the balcony except for Naruto and Neji? The genin followed his orders, but Neji and Naruto scowled at one another. Naruto could not stop saying to himself, don't kill him, don't kill him, don't kill him. Neji was reiterating in his mind how fate had declared him the winner. When Genma took a step back and raised his arm, the crowd fell silent, knowing that both were prepared for a fight. Kitsune was drawn by Naruto, leaving Red Queen protruding from the earth. With a glare that could have killed a buffalo, he regarded Neji while holding the blade in a slack stance. Sadly, Neji was only sweating in second, guessing himself for a split second before he was able to gather himself. The Hyuga prodigy then entered the Jayuken and turned on his Byakugan, projecting a superiority complex on his face. Genma yelled, begin, and he instantly brought his hand down as if he were cutting a rope. Then, he jumped back to give the two teenagers space. It's a good thing he did, too, because Naruto charged towards the waiting Hyuga even before he could finish speaking. Everything began exactly as Naruto had sort of anticipated. Neji just about avoided the blade piercing his stomach as he lunged forward. In the meantime, Naruto leapt in the direction of the wall and struck it with his blade. The wall appeared to be about ready to collapse and broke instantly. Neji rose, self-assured as ever. Now, Uzumaki-san, go back. You are nothing more than an idiot if you think you can beat me. I've seen your records in the academy files. You will fall by my hand, as fate has already determined that I am the winner, shitted out Neji. In the meantime, Naruto was twitching due to the extremely difficult words. This man resembles an elderly gentleman. No, even Gigi doesn't speak in that manner. Naruto thought, I better beat the shit out of him soon, or else I'm going to have a headache when the invasion happens. Is fate your bitch or something? He asked kindly, giving Neji a startled look. You know, you just keep saying things like, fate told me that, and fate declared this. Do you really pay her to say this garbage, really? A girl screaming in the distance might be heard if you listen closely enough. I'm nobody's bitch. Uzumaki, don't think you can make me laugh. You won't be able to divert my attention or outwit me as quickly as the Inuzuka heir. You didn't answer my question. Deadpan Naruto made fun of himself. Neji simply scoffed and resumed his position. Regardless of the answer, you will still lose. So is that a yes? Neji's response was to charge forward with the intention of shattering Naruto's heart to pieces. Naruto assumed his black fist stance and waited for the Hyuga to approach before getting close enough. Naruto avoided the situation and attempted to kick Neji in the stomach as soon as he got close enough to aim for the heart. Neji was able to attack again with a ballet-style sidestep, forcing Naruto to crouch and twist to protect the Hyuga. He succeeded in hitting Neji in the stomach, but the prodigy deftly parried with a blow to his left arm. Naruto muttered, well, shit. Are you certain you can keep fighting? Neji bragged, I already took out one of your arms, so it's useless now. Naruto asked in a casual manner, ever heard of one-handed seals, fuckface? Naruto blurred his hand just long enough for Neji to see it before yelling, wind. Style, great breakthrough, and sending Neji flying backward while suffering several cuts to his body. The blow to his windpipe caused him to land on his back, moaning. Hyuga, get up, and get ready to experience the fallout from your deeds. Naruto gave a menacing snarl. And Hyuga Neji felt fear seep into his being for the first time in a long time. Zabuza was in the cage box, raising a non-existent eyebrow at Naruto's gloomy demeanor. He turned to face the Hokage and inquired, what's up with the Gaki? He appears to be very irate with the Hyuga boy. Sarutobi elucidated with a nod. Hyuga Neji engaged in combat with his cousin Hyuga Hanata during the second exam section, seriously injuring and demeaning her. Naruto now has a grudge with young Neji since he isn't the kind of person to just let things like that go. I see. Based on the last glimpse I had of the Gaki, I believe he is capable of defeating me in my vulnerable state. But even though I've grown stronger, I can sense that he has too. Much stronger, he said, glancing at Haku, who appeared to be gazing in wonder at Naruto. Haku, who did not have the same upbringing as other children, was readily swayed by Naruto's demonstration of strength. She was also starting to feel a little warm down below. These days kids, he reasoned that they prefer cool and flashy over effectiveness, but then Naruto struck the same wall he had earlier struck with his blade, breaking it completely. Perhaps not with this child. Even though it appeared to be a fairly typical strike, it completely broke the system. Haku thought to herself, her eyes clouding slightly, Kami, he doesn't even seem winded. You would have needed to be admitted to the hospital due to blood loss if you had witnessed the images that were racing through her mind. Through your nose. She turned red as a tomato as quickly as Hanata usually did. The author is not going to write this down because he has just realized something that could make people think he's crazy. As Naruto hit the Hyuga boy with a fist the size of a grown man, Inari wondered if he would teach her that lesson one day. Ouch. How will this invasion proceed? I wonder. Under her kimono, Tsunami concealed a katana and a ninja.to. Hopefully, those few things Zabuza.kun taught me will come in handy, she thought to herself. Although the ninja.to's sheath featured wave patterns, both were fairly ordinary. Tazuna was merely grinning broadly, finding great amusement in the two boys sparring. Anyone paying close enough attention to the matcha, mostly the Jonin and Uppa, would have noticed that Naruto wasn't making much of an effort. Although he appeared angry, he remained composed and refrained from tearing off Neji's head. Sakura, meantime, saw that Shishi was missing from the balcony where the other genin were gathered. Why? Since he needed to use the restroom. Demons also required a place to relieve themselves. He was, of course, also ensuring that his little army of foxes was prepared for battle. Neji had grunted in place of his dislocated shoulder when he returned to the fight. Oh no, regardless of how many Tenketsu SP he closed, Naruto would just hit him harder. The boy wasn't even using any chakra, to be fair. With just 2 jutsu and his blade, he significantly increased the Hyuga's damage. Neji clenched his jaw and assumed a posture that was well known to all of the Hyuga observing. Uzumaki, you're within my reach now. Neji said, 8 trigrams. 60. 4 palms. Abruptly he blurred and launched a swift attack. Naruto experienced pain as several pokes sealed all of his tenketsu. 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 30.2 palms, 64 palms. Naruto was thrown back several feet by the last barrage and landed motionless on the ground. Hanata was watching anxiously from her seat, and when Naruto didn't get back up, she started to get scared. She thought, please be alright, Naruto.kun. She had no idea that the official WLN fan club, yes, he got one too, and a few girls were having the same thought. When Genma saw Naruto burst into a cloud of smoke, he stopped speaking. The winner is. Everyone was taken aback and perplexed, wondering what had happened, until they heard mock applause. Neji turned to see red. Queen stabbed horizontally into a wall. Naruto perched on the handle, using a kunai to clean his nails. After giving Neji a disinterested expression, Naruto suddenly remembered the shadow clone and said, that kinda sucked. I knew he was the only one who could take you out. But this just means I can remove you by myself. That being said, he jumped into the arena and landed with the earth cracking beneath him, falling almost a yard from Neji. It's unfortunate that there isn't much you can do for me. But now is the moment for the true suffering. Your eyes are said to be able to see anything. Then inform me. Abruptly he blurred and slammed red. Queen sighed against Neji's chest, knocking the boy back against a wall. What's the point? He said, blurring once more before kicking Neji in the head and causing the Hyuga to skid on the ground. Once more, he materialized above Neji and delivered an axe kick to the prodigy, evoking a cry of agony. In seeing what I do, when you can't do anything about it, finally, Naruto came to an end. Neji could only roll away from Naruto and slowly stand up at this point because she was in too much pain. Like a predator pursuing its victim, Naruto started to stalk him. His appearance became ferocious, and he entered what Shishi called his abyssal state, which was simply him using his abyss Yuki. Neji was able to straighten up and activate his Byakugan while assuming his Jiyuken stance. It astounded him that he had missed Naruto just sitting there, doing nothing. Was he really fighting a clone all this time? No, just in case you were wondering. Before my last Tenketsu could be blocked, you started fighting a clone. I succeeded in creating one and replaced it prior to you starting your 60. 4 palms. Naruto yelled. Neji just gave a growl and waited, watching as Naruto charged in for another attack. But this time, Neji started to swiftly turn around. As he let go of the chakras surrounding his body, he yelled, rotation, to signal the assault. Naruto attempted to stab his blade into the chakra dome after failing to halt his charge. Regretfully, it caused him to fall backwards and collide with a wall, leaving his imprint on it. He gradually detached himself from it, observing that Neji was now gazing at him with the same air of dominance. Give up now, Uzu. Talk about destiny one more time. And, Hyuga, I'll rip your mouth off. You're going to kill me, I promise, because of how annoying you are. The concept of fate is a fabrication of idiots who lack the willpower or vision to recognize that they have agency over their own fate. You think that people are unchangeable? Then give me a look. I went from being despised and alone to having a family that supports and makes me feel normal. I would have gone insane and destroyed my own village if I hadn't met my partner so long ago. Hirai approached Neji and positioned himself roughly 2 feet away from the boy. So stop being a fool and grow up. He succeeded in severing Neji's headband with swift cuts, sending the metal object tumbling to the floor. After examining Neji's forehead seal for a moment, Naruto nodded and seemingly made up his mind. Neji was still attempting to maintain his upright position by leaning on the wall behind him. Even though this seal is funny, I think it's the leash you're wearing. Thus, why not remove it? Naruto mostly whispered to himself. He shot Neji a sly smile that looked like it was holding back rage. Rejoice that you spared Hanata-chan's life. Neji, you are only alive because of her, even at this point when she is unable to do much harm to you. She begged me not to kill you, even though I was going to do just that. And I'll comply if she thinks there's something worth saving about you. He then powered up Red Queen and let it glow red for a moment before slashing Neji across the forehead. For a brief while, many thought he had just killed him and were terrified. However, soon after, ink shot out of Neji's forehead and became trapped in the blade rather than blood. The last thing Neji saw before losing consciousness was Naruto grinning and stating, "Be free, Hyuga Neji." After that, everything vanished and he felt an odd sense of freedom enveloping him. Naruto turned to face the crowd. The daimyos and other lords were equally shocked. Some of the civilians were glaring at him, some slacked jawed, some Enbu and Jonin looked a little nervous, and the genin was simply dumbfounded. He said, "Thank you ladies and gentlemen, you've been a wonderful audience," with a big smile and a peace sign. Prior to examining the proctor. "He needs medical attention, so you should really call the fight now. Mostly a few shattered bones, nothing more. Winner, Uzumaki." "Namikaze Naruto," cried Genma, nodding. There was silence for a moment. When the civilians learned that Naruto was connected to the Yondaime Hokage in some way, they were all in disbelief. Zabuza whistled, startled as well. "Oh my god," he muttered, "I felt like that flashing shit he did was familiar." The spectators' cries of, "That's not true," and "He can't be Yondaime Sama's son," suddenly filled the arena. Quiet. At first, you all denied that Naruto was a human. Well, that's it. It is true that Uzumaki Naruto is the son of Namikaze Minato and the heir to the Namikaze family. He will be entitled to the Namikaze seat in the council as soon as he turns Chunin. Naruto is neither a monster nor a demon, but because of what this village has done, he has had to undergo significant transformations in order to protect the people he cares about. Grow up, as Naruto put it so succinctly. Sarutobi, who was leaking ki by the gallon, yelled. As the ki subsided and the tests proceeded, there was silence. As soon as Naruto got back on the balcony, Tamari said, "So, your old man is the yellow Flash, right?" "Yes. And the civilians will now start begging me to marry their daughters and forgiving me, if their responses were any indication. I don't really intend to do that, though. I don't want them to think that I can just forgive them because they've done me enough harm. There will be some sort of redemption forthcoming for them." Darkly, Naruto murmured. He wasn't exactly hateful of the villagers at the moment. Still, that didn't mean he was fond of them. These days, he would rather have them leave him alone. "Will Haruno, Sakura and Cho please come down to begin their match?" asked Genma. The part of the crowd that wasn't of Konoha's own villagers were cheering and applauding Naruto's performance and beginning to hold Konoha in higher regards. Hiruzen was grinning ear-to-ear and chuckling. Zabuza was smirking at the boy's skills, and the Kazekage had a glazed look on his face. Well now, it seems Naruto-kun has more power than Sasuke-who. Bah, whatever. As soon as I find a way to remove that accursed Kyuubi from the boy, he will be mine. Thought the Kazekage, Hiruzen and Zabuza gave a quizzical look when they noticed that the Kazekage was shivering, but decided to leave it be. Naruto smiled from the balcony, happy with being acknowledged. Hanata was in her seat, also cheering for Naruto while he smiled and waved to her. She waved back with a smile, and he noticed she looked really beautiful when she did so. He made a mental note to make her smile a lot more from now on. Sakura calmly walked down into the arena, Shishi next to her as she gave a high five to Naruto. Shishi gave him one as well, but used his tail instead. Though she didn't have the same control over shadows as Naruto did, Shishi always took care of that by manipulating what she couldn't. Meanwhile, on the balcony, Naruto was bombarded with questions from a bunch of his friends. All he could do was laugh and respond as best he could. Though it sounded more like a declaration, Shikamaru said, "So you're now in the CRA like Sasuke is?" "Yes, but I genuinely love my girls, unlike him. I still believe he is gay, too," said Naruto. As Shikamaru spoke once more, this caused quite a few people to stop and think. Girls? You already own more than one, as if in? He inquired. Shikamaru let out a sigh, and Naruto grinned and nodded. He muttered, troublesome blonde. Sakura started her match, and Naruto just laughed more. Concurrently, a demon portal caused Akio to materialize next to him, snuggling up against him. Naruto.kun. Everything's prepared. I told the foxes to attack only the ones wearing headbands with sand gourds and musical notes as soon as you call them forth. Are those pumpkins? I'm not sure if they're that or a sand clock, she said, giving him a tender cheek lick. He gave her a quick kiss on the forehead and said, good job, before turning back to watch the fight below. Well, looky here. Why, aren't you the cutest little thing? Too bad you're gonna be nothing more than smear on the ground as soon as I'm done with you, said Cho with a somewhat maniac look in her eyes. Sakura just quirked an eyebrow and shrugged before getting into the black fist stance, ready for anything coming her way. Cho rolled her left sleeve up and bit her thumb before swiping it into a seal all along her forearm. In a puff of smoke, a gray chain appeared in Cho's hand, a hook on either end. Shishi grew to be a lot bigger, nearly a sixth of the entire arena. Seeing a large fox put all the spectators on edge, as many civilians were nervous the fox would attack them in any moment. Looking between the two, Genma brought his hand up before slicing it downward and saying, begin. Instantly, Shishi lunged forward and tried to chomp onto the girl, but she jumped to the side and threw the chain towards Shishi. It wrapped around his neck and Cho tried to pull him in, but she just pulled herself closer to him. Grinning, Shishi began channeling Yuki into the chain and causing it to become black, contrast to its once gray color. As soon as it was completely black, Cho felt her hands begin to burn from the Yuki. She quickly jumped over the fox and unwrapped the chain, cutting the stream of Yuki to the weapon. Cho was about to attack again, but found herself tied by black strings coming out of her own shadow and wrapping around her until she was in a black cocoon, her neck and up being the only things exposed. Shadow. Style. Larva's punishment jutsu. Murmured Sakura as the cocoon began to squeeze Cho. The blue-haired woman screamed for a second, before she suddenly turned brown and melted. Sakura's eyes widened as she saw it was a mud clone and instinctively jumped up while the earth beneath her crumbled and Cho's hand shot out. She managed to evade the hand from grabbing her ankle, but Cho wasn't finished yet. Fire. Style. Fire. Stream jutsu. Called out the auto.nin, before she opened her mouth and breathed in, then blew out a 2-inch thick line of fire towards Sakura. Said girl quickly jumped backwards and hit the wall. Well, it looked like she would, but instead she went right through her shadow. Cho frowned, but soon felt an immense amount of pain on her shoulder as it was slightly bleeding. Glancing over her shoulder, she saw that two Sakuras were grasping a sixth of Shishi's sword form, with the remaining two pieces appearing to float to either side of her. Sakura assumed the black fist stance once more, and Shishi held limply in her left hand as Cho leapt back to gain some distance. The girl ducked under the chain and waited for Cho to approach before slashing at Sakura, but the auto.nin charged forward, sending her chain around Sakura. Upon noticing a tiny cut on her stomach, Cho leapt back. It hurt, but it wasn't lethal. My, you really are a fierce one. I suppose I'll enjoy myself more than I thought. Subsequently, she launched several kunai while exclaiming, Kunai Shadow. Clone Jutsu. Then the 7 kunai multiplied into more, almost 3 times the total amount. Sakura just crossed her arms and stabbed Shishi into the ground in front of her. Instantly, Shishi returned to being a fox before his tails expanded and wrapped around Sakura. The kunai bounced off the tail, before it retracted from Sakura. Is that all you have? Taunted Sakura. From behind Cho, the shadow clone suddenly made hand signs and called out, water. Style. Water. Prison jutsu. Cho couldn't move as she was suddenly surrounded by a sphere of water. Then it seems I'm going to have to show you my power. The power my Ni-san gave me. And with that, Sakura turned to Shishi. Let's get started. Shishi nodded and wrapped Hightail around the sphere. Up with the spectators, Asako was shocked by Sakura's behavior. When the girl went to her room with a bottle of black dye and a shopping bag, she didn't think much of it. But now, seeing her use the same powers that Demon Brat was using, she knew he did something to her little blossom. Glaring at the Jinchuriki, Her anger grew more when she saw him grinning at her. "I'm gonna kill you, monster, for what you have done to my baby," she hissed in her head. Those around her could see she was pissed, so they made no interaction with her whatsoever. Best to stay alive than be with a pissed woman. Naruto meanwhile smirked at the woman. She was one of the many reasons why his life was a living hell. So he was simply gonna let her believe what she wanted before busting her bubble. Might be fun to see the woman sputter up a storm. "Yeah, I did something." Though apparently it made Sakura stronger than what you would have allowed. Naruto thought while smirking at the woman. They held their gazes for a moment before they heard a scream come from the arena. Wrapping his tail around the sphere of water, Shishi began pushing more and more pure Yuki into the sphere, causing it to begin to bubble. If there was one thing he learned during his entire life, it was that pouring Yuki in its purest form into water caused the water to heat up quickly. So it wasn't much of a surprise when Cho began to scream while turning red as she tried to get away from the water. "Damn it!" she screamed when there was no way out. "You give up?" asked Sakura while continuing the jutsu. Cho growled at her before she felt something on her shoulder pulse painfully. Sakura noticed marks all over Chao's skin, and her eyes grew wide. They snaked around Chao's left side, resembling tiny teardrops chained together from tip to front. The prison exploded outward, forcing Sakura and Shishi to jump back from the girl as she felt it suddenly expand. Now reduced to nothing more than a maniac, the slightly unstable girl smiled and started to foam at the mouth. She threw the chain at Sakura and ran towards her, screaming, "Hee hee hee, you're gonna die now." When Cho sent fire, Chakra threw the blade and pulled, causing the blade to zip towards Sakura's face. Said Pinkette scowled and sidestepped the chain. The hook left a tiny scar on her right cheek, and she jerked her head to the side. "Prepare. I'm going to skin your damn fox and wear him as a trophy, bitch, once I'm done with you," Cho exclaimed, maintaining his insane expression. Sakura frowned once more and said, "Please give up now. You're clearly not in the best of mental health." Cho just smirked more and continued to release ki. A few bystanders passed out from the force as Sakura trembled but did not move further. "Please stop, please. You could damage yourself." "It doesn't concern me. Both your power and that fox are mine. Once I have him, he will give me all that he's given you," shouted Cho while pointing at Shishi. Said fox quirked an eyebrow at the crazed blue head. "I think she snapped," mumbled Shishi, Sakura nodding as she made a few hand signs. It was interrupted when Cho, in an incredible burst of speed, appeared in front of her and aimed to slice Sakura's neck open. Said Pinkette had no time to dodge as the blade neared her throat. Suddenly, Cho was bitten on the shoulder while being tackled to the ground by Shishi. He began clawing and biting, trying to kill the kunoichi while pushing Yuki into her body. The dark chakra was fighting his own, but just barely. Even if it was a bastardized form of Yuki, Chao's corrupted chakra was no match to the demon's own energy. As the Yuki ate away the chakra, Sakura continued her hand signs and slammed her hands into the ground. "Shadow. Style. Black Spike Graveyard Jutsu," shouted Sakura as her shadow was spread across the entire arena. Genma, thankfully, was smart enough to pay attention to the words, "graveyard," and "spike," and knew he should probably get off the ground. And as soon as he landed on the roof above, he saw Sakura summon an entire arena, full of black spikes that stabbed everything in the arena, excluding Sakura and Shishi. Cho, however, was not so lucky as spikes impaled her left lung, one of her legs, both arms, and her stomach. She was alive for a few seconds before dying, the marks on her body receding to her shoulder. The spikes dipped slowly back towards the floor, then into the dark pool and out of Sakura's shadow. Sakura sat there for a moment, taking in the awful mess that had once been Cho. Then, with her body shaking and tears streaming from her eyes, she turned around and puked up her entire lunch. In an attempt to console her, Shishi sprinted over to her and put his arms around her. "You're all right, Sakura. Chan. You took the appropriate action. I killed her, but she would have taken your life. I apologize, but you have to get used to killing. That's how shinobi do it. Even though it hurts, you have to kill." There was a 10-minute break to clean up the arena and give the spectators a chance to stretch, and while Sakura was being declared the winner, he picked her up and carried her to the balcony. Naruto ran to his doppelganger unknown currency her sister and put his hand over hers. He smiled kindly and murmured to Sakura, "Good job, you did well." Sakura nodded her head and smiled weakly, but she said nothing. You don't have to enjoy killing, if that helps. It will grow on you until you start to feel very little. You'll always be human as long as you're able to feel pain. She let sleep take her, rasping out, Thanks. Ni-san. After giving her a smile and nodding, Naruto turned to face the proctor. Sasuke would be eliminated if he failed to arrive before the deadline. As he waited for his final teammate to arrive, Naruto sighed. It was barely 4 minutes later, and he was starting to grow irritated. I'm going to cause him to suffer like he's never suffered before, if I ever get the chance. Unaware of how tightly he was holding Shishi's tail, Naruto thought. The demon started to complain loudly. Uzumaki, huh? You know that hurts. Shishi pleaded, please, leave my tail alone. After realizing what he was doing, Naruto apologized to him and let go. What's got you so antsy anyway? I'm bored as hell. Then let's entertain those that are here, shall we? When Naruto turned to face him, Shishi was beaming broadly in his human form. The Hanyu grinned as well, then vanished into their own shadows. Sakura saw them vanish as soon as she woke up. She hoped the two had not done something foolish. Naruto and Shishi were smirking and playing their guitars on the bleacher roof. Shishi said, "This is going to be really good." Naruto nodded and got ready with his guitars. Making his tails semi-transparent, Shishi got ready to make a beat. Once the song was over, the entire audience was speechless while the two blondes smiled. Then Akio, turning into her human form, started clapping, followed by Sakura, Haku and Hanata. The rest of the rookies, Tamari and Kankuro, Sarutobi, Zabuza, and a few others. Soon the entire audience was clapping and cheering as the teens bowed and left. Shishi once again a fox to slip by. A few of the younger girls from the audience were looking around and wondering where the cute blonde that Naruto was with had gone off to. They're looking for you. Speaking to Shishi, Naruto gave him a contented smile. That's cause I'm awesome, declared Shishi. Sakura giggled and scratched him behind the ear, causing him to become limp and begin to purr. Oh yeah. I'm happy now, leave me alone Uzumaki. Naruto chuckled and nodded before there was a swirling of leaves and wind appearing in the center of the arena. About time. They only had 33 seconds. I counted 37, said Shishi. What matters is that they're running late. How convenient that Kakashi's tardiness is now affecting Sasuke. I will kill the Uchiha immediately if he begins to read porn. They peruse graphic novels? Is it that they don't find love or something? Quote dot 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 quote quote dot 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 quote quote dot 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 quote quote dot 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 quote. Nope, don't think so. Blessed Mina wait, never mind. Suckers, ha 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 ha. The moment Kakashi and Sasuke, the two ninjas, materialized back. Genma's eyebrow quivered slightly. Kakashi, you're late once more. While I acknowledge that your entrance was good, I think Naruto and Sakura both performed much better, he said. Seriously, I almost pooped myself, though the last statement was more addressed to himself. Kakashi's eyes grew slightly wide as he turned to face the balcony and noticed Sakura and Naruto grinning back at him. Sasuke glanced too, noting Sakura's change in appearance. Not too bad. She might be deserving of being my first wife, I suppose. The Uchiha thought, then she'll have to give me those techniques. Sakura scowled at him as though reading his thoughts, and Shishi started hatching schemes to inflict pain on the boy. First, I'm going to pull out all of my fingernails. Second, I'm going to rip out a kidney, then suture the wound and slap his stupid face. I'll then tear off half of his liver, chew it, and spit it in his face, all the while drooling blood at him. He kept going through his mental list, promising himself that he would kill the motherfucker as soon as possible on the grounds that he was a demon. Then rip off his appendages, cook them, force him to eat them beside me, and then... They appear to be thriving. Sakura's new outfit is nice, and it will help her conceal herself from her enemies, Kakashi thought. Now, it appears as though she might belong to the same clan as Naruto. Which reminds me, he said, turning to Sakura's furious mother. I doubt that Asako will be content. He rubbed his ears and thought, man, I can already feel my ears bleeding just thinking about her screams. Well, you had about 30.1 seconds before Sasuke was disqualified, so you're lucky you came now. Genma said with a smile. You also failed to see the fights between your two other students. They really are the strongest children I have ever seen, I must say. Kakashi replied, thanks, but I didn't do much. Actually, He hadn't even demonstrated the tree climbing exercise to Sakura or the kunai balancing exercise to Naruto until almost a week before they left for Wave. Genma said, "Yeah, well your match is up Sasuke." With a nod, Sasuke moved to one side of the arena, and Gaia started to descend, first staring at Naruto and then frowning. Why does he have love? Why? He's not supposed to be, she thought, he should be. He should be like me. She looked at Sasuke, who had assumed a fighting stance. I'll quickly get rid of him. I'll battle Uzumaki after that. That's not the life he should have. He ought to be going through this with me. I know you don't like the guy, Gaia, but maybe you should avoid him. He will kill us, you know. He's an abyss. Shukaku began to breathe heavily and said that. Mom. I believed you desired its blood. Yeah, but I also want to stay alive. So just stay away from him and keep us both alive for as long as possible. Unbeknownst to Shukaku, Gaia wasn't really going to listen to him. She was going to kill Naruto, and there was nothing that would stop her. As the match began, Naruto had a quirked eyebrow when he noticed that Gaia was glaring at her. I'm not completely sure why she's like this, but I guess she doesn't like me much, thought the blonde while watching how they attacked. Man, Sasuke's pathetic. Unable to fight on his own, he is using the taijutsu he previously copied from Lee. I'll try to replicate my attacks, particularly the ones he is unable to avoid. I'm going to have fun making him move. He witnessed Sasuke making hand signals and leaping off a wall. He snarled at the masked man, who raised his arms in a defensive stance, and his head snapped to Kakashi. Hi there, alright. The council told me. I had very little to no options, the Jonin countered. After glaring at him for a brief while, Naruto returned his attention to the battle and watched as Sasuke charged toward Gaia's sand sphere while brandishing a Chidori in his left hand. Fantastic. When you showed him your lightning blade, his ego went through the roof and he started to think he had the greatest jutsu. I predict he has 2 months left before he perishes in battle, Naruto uttered. 3 months, I say. Sakura, leaning against the wall, called. 2 months would be if we began making him feel inferior and then he'll want to prove himself by looking for trouble. Kakashi said, I agree, 3 months. Before Naruto sealed the money, they all put some cash in a bag. The Cyclops looked down at Sasuke as the Uchiha rushed forward to pierce the sand, saying, now to see what happens now. The Suna.nin were all taken aback when they witnessed Sasuke's Chidori effortlessly breach Gaia's strongest defense. For a brief moment, there was silence, and Gaia's eyes widened when she felt something sticky and wet on her chest. Thisa, is it blood? My blood? She muttered before the full force of the pain overcame her and she screamed in excruciating pain. And almost at once, the cage box erupted in smoke, and feathers started to rain down onto the arena. With a feral grin, Naruto dispelled the jutsu and turned demonic. At last. I will undoubtedly enjoy myself, and I've been waiting for some violence. Down below, the Shinigami looked above him and shivered suddenly. The underworld resembled a desert with a veil of darkness over it. There were people screaming in pain, mist hanging, a black sky, and gray sand. He looked to his left, at a large door 10 feet tall. The door was constructed from the strongest metals known to man, and it included chains made of the metal. Snake Clan and a lock made of pure demonic skin, the key to which had long since been destroyed. And a spiral emblem stood in the middle of the enormous door. He shivered again, thinking of the clan that always brought more souls to him, as he looked back up to a vortex through which people were falling. And Uzumaki remains alive to this day. That's great, I'll have an excess of souls now. I believed that Kushina girl to be the last one. Chaos reigned. If others had been present, they would have told you that. Sakura and Naruto materialized in the middle of the arena as soon as the cage box started to smoke. While one of the two was itching to kill again, the other was a little too eager. Now we're talking. Naruto exclaimed, grinning broadly. In his human form, Shishi exclaimed, yeah, now to cause pain to all our foes, bitches. With a deranged smile. Sakura and Akio sighed at them, choosing instead to let the boys be and offer some assistance. Sakura and Shishi parted ways, with the latter going to the cage box while Naruto chewed his thumb and made hand gestures. Summoning jutsu, he exclaimed as a group of about 50 foxisa all of different sizes, colors, and some even with clothes appeared in front of him. They had hats and vests on. He noticed that one had sunglasses on and that another had shorts on. The majority of the fur colors were black, blue, gray, dark yellow, and a few browns. Gur stood out due to his size. Then there was a shout of, "Understood, Naruto. Sama." And everyone started running in different directions. "You know what to do. Attack," declared Naruto. He shrugged, cocking his head to the side on the Sama suffix, and turned to watch Sasuke rip his arm out of the shell just in time to see a hand that looked like a demon try to rip him to pieces. The hand appeared to be severely malformed, and it had blue veins mixed in with what appeared to be a combination of skin and sand. The hand was about to grab Sasuke, but before it could, Naruto's right hand reached out, turning his arm black, growing eyes and mouths, and expanding before grabbing the equally large hand's wrist. Naruto grinned and said, Now, Gaia. I hate the bastard as much as you, but I can't simply let you kill him. His soul is as good as mine." Before Naruto could see an eye through the hole Sasuke made, the hand slowly started to shrink back into the ball of sand that Gaia was in. The sand crumbled away and lay around her as she hissed angrily, holding her left shoulder. "I'm gonna kill you, Uzumaki. When I am done, you will be in as much pain as I am." Her voice hissed with anger, just like her sand. Naruto just gave her a growl as he prepared to fight, but as Gaia started to scream and clutch her head, her siblings materialized. Picking up her younger sister, Temari exclaimed, "Come on Gaia, we need to leave," and leapt out of the way. Naruto sighed and Sasuke went after them. After giving it some thought, he shrugged and turned to face Kakashi, who had just finished tending to another ninja. "Report." Kakashi gave the order. Sasuke just went off, hopefully to his death. "And finally, I summoned my pack to take care of a few of the pests around here." Almost exactly on cue, two spheres of flame struck each other from opposite directions, instantly burning away an unfortunate Odo.nin in a heap of ash. Sakura and Shishi have gone off to make sure that Gigi and Zabuza are okay. Before they dashed off to battle more foes, two red foxes with three tails, one around his neck and the other around his head, were standing over the pile and grinning. "Fine. Go wake up those that you'll need and back up Sasuke." With a childlike expression, Naruto asked, "Why can't we let him die?" Kakashi, looking a little irritated, answered, "Because I spent too much damn time teaching him and I don't want all that to go to waste." He approached Shikamaru and gave him a brief glance before saying, "All right. Fine, just give me a second." When Shikamaru didn't reply, Naruto reared back his leg and gave the Nara a kick to the stomach, saying, "Get up, Shika. You and I are going to go after an idiot." With a grunt, Shikamaru opened an eye. "Damn you, Naruto. I was hoping that I'd get at least a few minutes of sleep." "You're welcome, Shika. Now get up, and help me find someone that can help us out. We need to find Sasuke, beat the crap out of him, and bring him back." His response was a toothy grin that said, "You added the beating up part, didn't you? Troublesome." Naruto muttered, Right, let's get going, you idiot," before approaching a fallen enemy nin and snatching the man by the head. Then he gave him a vicious knee, breaking his neck and sending him flying into a wall that was completely destroyed in the process. He took a moment to scan his surroundings before focusing on Shino, who was leaning against the wall. After giving him a brief glance, Naruto said, "Are you awake?" "Yes." "Will you come along?" "I believe so. My fight between Kankuro.san will begin when I find him." Then Naruto, Shikamaru, and Shino leapt into the hole and started to move towards Sasuke, saying, "Good, 'cause the rest of them don't seem like they can last for long." He gave the sun one last glance and then grinned. He reasoned that Hikari, Chan and the others had to be getting ready by now. In company with Sakura, just before the other four Auto.nin could complete creating the barrier, Sakura and Shishi materialized where Sarutobi and Zabuza were. Sakura muttered, "Damn, I almost didn't make it," and turned to face the cage. He severed his face, revealing Orochimaru, the snake slayer, smiling at the Hokage and Mizukage, who both gave him a fierce look in return. The Sandaime was wearing his battle armor when the two real cages grabbed hold of their cloaks and pulled them off. Zabuza was dressed similarly to the people in the wave bridge, but he had an additional ninja.to on his left hip and a metal plate on his left shoulder. Zabuza muttered, preparing his Zanbato in a sword stance, Orochimaru of the Sannin. Boy, the Gaki wasn't kidding when he said this could end badly. "Perhaps it would have been wise to stay in your village rather than to get involved with this," Sarutobi replied. "Nah. I owe the kid for keeping Hiku safe. Besides, I prefer to fight in a war, even if it is small. You and me both, Zabuza.san. Shishi erupted, his body trembling with a feral expression. I haven't killed anyone since just a few minutes ago. Sakura bit her 2 thumbs and muttered, then we better end this quickly. She spread them across her arms and watched seals made of invisible ink glow before smoke filled her hands. When the smoke cleared, Sakura was visible donning the demon brother's poisoned claws. Time to get serious. Though Orochimaru was teasing him, he was actually a little concerned. Kukakukuku. Do you honestly believe that you can defeat me? I am considered a Sannin for a reason you know. He could fight his sensei close and take him out. Zabuza was added, so in addition to probably changing into his enormous snake form, he might need some luck. Now, a girl with abilities almost identical to Uzumaki's and a demon. And he thought he was going to die after all. He smirked at them, thinking, I have to end this quickly, and possibly mark Naruto.kun before I leave. Shishi grabbed Sakura's wrists and pulled her forward, saying, now then. Since there are too many of us, it's only fair that we fight him 2 at a time. Sakura, we're first. Sakura appeared prepared to kill Shishi. Zabuza arched a non-existent eyebrow, and Sarutobi's jaw hit the ground. Sakura's left eye started to twitch as she yelled, did he seriously just do that? Is he trying to get us killed? With a sigh, she prepared to fight as Orochimaru scowled slightly. So they'll allow the demon and the girl to perish then? Orochimaru thought, perhaps I could convince them to accompany me. But Shishi was ahead of him, his leg reared back to kick his face, before he could even think of anything to say. Anticipating its weakness, Orochimaru raised a single hand to halt it. That turned out to be a mistake when Shishi's foot collided with the Sannin's palm, causing the latter to almost break and prompting Orochimaru to extend his other hand in support. Then Shishi reached out and twisted his arm into a spike, pointing it toward Orochimaru's abdomen. This isn't going to go well, the Sannin thought to himself as he avoided Sakura as she shot skyward in his direction. What shocked him more was when the ground beneath her abruptly turned into a 4-foot long crater. Not at all. The Hokage monument is above. Hikari, 2 more firefoxes, Gur, and 2 more shadow foxes were gathered around a bloody circle bearing runes and other symbols. Are you all ready? This will severely drain your Yuki, Hikari replied. Gur, a goatee wearing man in his mid-20s, turned to the other 4 foxes and grinned, saying, I've done this before, I will do it again for Naruto.san. I'm sure I can take it. Getting nods, he asked, you sure you 4 want to go through this? As they all completed the circle and put their hands on the 6 sealsa, all of which glowed as they channeled Yuki into Tama, he said, good. Let's get started then. As she felt her strength ebbing away and the others were too, Hikari whispered, I hope this works. She muttered, good luck, Naruto.kun, before passing out from lack of Yuki and falling asleep, the others falling asleep soon after. But as the day grew gloomy, the work was finished. Naruto gave a frustrated growl. He had to abandon Shika to fend off their assailants in addition to having just consented to Shino sparring with Kankuro. He was now prepared for battle and running in Temari's and Geia's direction. He stopped as Temari did, realizing that the red head was still holding her head tightly and that she was doing everything in her power to keep Sasuke away from Gaia. You'll grant me your authority. I had to murder Uzumaki, she cried out in her mind as Shukaku did the only thing he knew how to do in an attempt to subdue her, giving her a fatal migraine that would drive one to contemplate taking their own life. She actually tried to stab herself at least twice a year when she was 5 years old, so it has happened before. When she was 10, she gave up and stopped, letting the headaches happen in the hopes that they would go away quickly. Shukaku yelled like a whiny child, no, are you crazy? I don't want to die. I want to live. I want to see if I can rip this fucking seal off. Go away, I'll have his blood now. Mother, you said you wanted his blood. I think I also stated that I want to live, so follow your mother's advice and avoid him. Sensing the same chakra as the Jinchuriki they were discussing, Gaia growled and shook her head. He tried to keep Shukaku's power with him, but the seal was too weak because it was both a gift and a curse. If she really wanted his power, she could take it and there was little to nothing he could do about it. He's here and I'm going to kill him. He doesn't deserve to be happy, he should be like me. He should be hated and alone like me. She growled in her head, calling upon Shukaku's power. All right, good. Shukaku pouted and crossed his arms like a child, complaining, but if we both get sent to Shinigami Sama's stomach, I'm gonna fuck your head up twice as it already is. Gaia roared, her entire left arm and face covered in veins, her body covered in sand as she growled and snarled like an animal. I outrank you, Gaia, so I wouldn't if I were you, Naruto said, his eyes narrowing. Despite the strength of your sand, I defeated you through element and experience. I advise you to quit right away. Uzumaki, please stop talking. You ought not to be leading such a life. Shouted Gaia as her breathing became ragged and hateful. I'm hated, it is only fitting that you do too. With that, she leapt towards the Hanyu, the tree branch she was on breaking from the force. She aimed to hit Naruto, but his right arm and face became black before it grew much like Gaia's, stopping the attack with his palm. I'm not letting you live. Be glad that you pass away while still loved. Unlike me, she remarked just before the sand started to cover the rest of her body. Gaia turned into a raccoon dog that resembled Shukaku, her body bulging and made of sand with bluish purple markings around her body and her tail, while the black around her eyes became more pronounced and made claw-like marks on either cheek. Her arms were raised, and she slammed them into the ground, grinding and moving the soil while mixing her sand with it to give her more sand around her. Naruto gritted his teeth as he looked down, nearly destroying the surrounding trees, but it was replaced with a smirk as he saw the sun. Gradually, the eclipse turned the sky red and the clouds gray, and he could feel his own Yuki shooting through the roof as the sky above him turned black, covering Gaia and Naruto in the abyssal shadows. While Gaia's form was terrifying enough, what really made everyone tremble was Naruto's transformation into a black fox with eyes on his shoulders, hips, and running down the three tails behind him, as well as a large eye on his chest and another in the middle of his forehead, wrapped in what appeared to be a transparent energy blanket that prevented his body from suckling up light surrounding it. Shishi explained that without it, Naruto would unintentionally destroy the planet. Naruto, get ready to die. Then, as the shadows reached up to try to grab a hold of Gaia, she simply became soft and the shadows went right through her. Shukaku was mumbling about how he didn't ever think of that, since he then realized how Hachibi always managed to get him in a Nelson. Shouted Gaia as she called more sand around her and shot it towards the abyss. Demon. Naruto's tail shot out and slammed into the sand, canceling out and causing the sand to scatter into the air. Gaia, stop this, although I don't mean to offend you. This will be your grave if you injure my village. It was a sight both beautiful and gruesome as shadow and sand clashed and two beasts of power bit and clawed at each other. But that wasn't the only thing that enraged the Jinchuriki. Turned demon as Naruto shouted more shadows to get Gaia. The great clans of Konoha were fighting for their villages, and all around it you could see the monarchs of the clans fighting and showing no mercy to their enemies. The senior Ino, Shika, Cho were fighting side by side once more, their faces adorned with smiles befitting children. Anbu and many others fought, and some were surprised to see demon foxes there, fighting alongside them no less. Some concluded that this was a blessing, others thought Naruto had something to do with it. Nevertheless, the village went on fighting while the demons from their respected villages fought as well. After Sakura and Shishi took their turns, the other two Kage were left to battle the already gasping Sannin. Even Kiba, who had been a jerk at first, fought alongside his sister and mother to protect the civilians, and a number of other demons also fought to ensure that the civilians reached the civilian shelter unharmed. It was almost like hell in Konoha, and within it all, a clone of Naruto found Hikari and the others to flash to the Namikaze estate. Once there, it checked to make sure the twins were still asleep and that the silencing jutsu was still in effect. Then it took a vial of blood out of its pocket and placed it on a roof, using hand signs to run through before yelling, summoning jutsu. A small, black-eyed, blue-furred creature with large ears and stubby feet, spikes running down his back, and a semi-large nose appeared in a puff of smoke. It was funny because it had an orange jumpsuit and bright yellow blasters on either arm. His name was Stitch, and he gave a salute before scuttling off to blast opponents with green energy beams and yelling random gibberish. Hakadata, Teki Teki, ha 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 ha. The clone shrugged and blinked in confusion before dispelling itself, completing its task. The scene was almost beautiful, but it also made Temari and Sasuke, who had just managed to escape in time, fearful. Naruto, with a roar, swiped at Gaia's face and managed to slightly hurt her, but the sand quickly rebuilt itself as Gaia launched a counter. Naruto's leg briefly fell, but he just willed the shadows to collect and he was as good as new in seconds. The sand around Gaia hissed and writhed like a swarm of tan snakes, reaching out to try and save her. Above, Naruto's abyssal shadows covered the sky in a blanket of mouths and eyes, all of them moving and searching for any signs of blood, cackling with horrible voices as they sounded amused. If an artist were present, they might describe it as a battle between two demons in tan flames while black rain falls. Meanwhile, Gaia grew more and more frustrated, realizing that no matter how much Yuki she pulled from Shukaku, he would only step it up a notch or two and fight on equal footing to keep her in the same area. When Naruto had had enough, he closed his mouth as steam leaked through his teeth from the evaporating saliva. Raising his head back, he let out a roar as the condensed Yuki made a beam out of his mouth and slammed straight into Gaia, who tried to dodge but was too slow and took the entire hit, the heat of the beam quickly turning the sand into glass. Naruto glanced up at the sky for a brief moment and saw the eclipse starting to lift. Rearing his fist back, Naruto punched straight through the glass, making contact with the barely conscious Gaia, whose sand and Naruto's shadow both desperately tried to soften the fall. When they finally hit the ground, Gaia attempted to stab Naruto with a spike made of glass shards, but Naruto easily stopped it with his hand, not even bothered when it started to cut into his skin. The black trench coat that he was wearing over his clothes and a black breastplate, resembling his father's flames. "Why, dear? How come you of all people need to be loved?" screamed she at him. "How about me? I'm tired of being by myself." She was holding on to Naruto as if he were the only thing keeping her sane, which, ironically, he was. His Yuki sensed his intent to calm her, and it did just that by wrapping around Shukaku's Yuki and repressing it back into the seal. Then, she curled into Naruto's arms and continued to cry, her shoulders shaking as tears spilled from her eyes freely. It had been a long time since she had last cried, not having done so since her uncle had attempted to kill her. With his hand moving through the redhead's hair, Naruto gently swayed her back and forth, the moon returning to its original position and the eclipse fully gone. "That's what you get from listening to a demon as insane as Shukaku, I suppose," Naruto murmured, looking at Gaia as she looked at her lap. She hated this. A lot. She was the Jinchuriki, yet here she was crying on the lap of some kid that was much stronger than her. "But you won't be alone anymore. I've been here before, so I know how it is. Not by much, I suppose, but I understand loneliness. Gaia, stay with me. I also swear I won't ever abandon you," he whispered. "I'll always be with you," with a soothing tone, his eyes shining with barely contained hope. Slowly, the breastplate and coat around him vanished into nothing, and the glass in his hand also vanished as his lips met Gaia's. She tried to stay awake, but sleep had taken hold of her, and as soon as she did, the sand started to hiss more and start to crawl towards Gaia. It all stopped when Naruto blasted the area with his ki, making Gaia shiver in her sleep as he pressed his forehead against hers. Slowly but surely, she melted into him and placed her hands on his chest, savoring every second of the kiss. She never knew something could feel so wonderful. Naruto was standing in a fairly ordinary looking desert. The sky was blue, the sun was scorching, the sands were all the proper tan color, and the only thing that stood out about Gaia's mindscape was the massive sandstorm that was in front of him, with a paper tag loosely inside it and the silhouette of a large shape standing in the middle, trying to claw at the tag. Naruto slowly approached the sandstorm, the shape appearing to grow more desperate to get the tag. As he got closer, he saw that the tag was old and crumbled, with the kanji for seal on it. He growled at how badly it had been done, and made the decision to fix it as soon as he had the chance. Shukaku was standing in the center of the sandstorm, shaking like a leaf the moment he saw Naruto, and Naruto entered it as though it weren't even there. "Shukaku, I'm getting pretty fucking annoyed here," Naruto said to Shukaku. "Keep your fucking hands off Gaia, or die now and prepare for me to haunt you later. Her mind is included in that." Shukaku quickly nodded, scared out of his wits. If that small bit of insanity was any indication, he would rather die than have to suffer through whatever the hell this kid was thinking, and as a master of insanity himself, he knew that the more insane they are, the more easily they can snap at you. Naruto growled out, his hands flexing as he got the feeling to slice the Tanuki's throat open. Naruto left Gaia's mind with that. Shukaku didn't even realize he was holding his breath until he collapsed due to oxygen deprivation in Naruto's ki strain. Sakura, certain that her 10 minutes were almost up, wanted this to end quickly, and she growled in frustration as Orochimaru's Kusanagi almost stabbed her in the stomach, only saving her because Shishi tackled her at the last second, telling Shishi that she was okay. Sakura stood just as Orochimaru finished going through his hand signs and played his final trump card. Forbidden Arts. Impure World Resurrection. 3 coffins appeared in front of the Sannin, slowly rising from the earth as he spoke. Shishi, right now. Sakura nodded to the demon, who then sprinted forward and leapt toward the coffins. He yelled, "Soul release," as he slammed his hands onto the first and let his tails fall on the other 2. The caskets burst open, revealing 3 bodies. 2 were Kin's teammates, but the third was a girl with regrowth in her hair, glasses, and rags. Karen. The red-haired girl yelled from one of the corners of the barrier, letting go of her post and sprinting towards the other girl. *T. Yukon. Please hurry over there, called a rather feminine-looking guy as the head behind his neck separated into an identical-looking person and went to the spot the red head was on. Damn it to you. The moment this is all over, I'm going to kill you. Calm down. She called back as she reached the younger girl. Karen, please, Karen, get up, she pleaded, listening to the unconscious girl breath and making sure her pulse was strong. When she was sure the girl would live, she turned angrily at Orochimaru. You fucking bastard. You promised to keep my sister alone. Orochimaru suddenly focused all of his ki onto Yuya, causing her to gasp for air. You tiny worm. Are you really of the opinion that you ought to say that to someone you know is more powerful than you? With a fierce question, he raised the Kusanagi to impale her, but before he could do so, Shishi, who had come back to Sakura's side, grabbed hold of both Karen and her. Screaming to the heavens, Sakura pulled out a small container with a light, brownish liquid inside. Gazing back and forth from Shishi to the bottle, she sighed and thought, might as well have some fun before I die. Then, suddenly, she grabbed Shishi's hair and pulled, causing the demon to scream in agony and allowing her to pour the liquid down his throat. She slammed her hands into the ground and a black transparent wall appeared in front of her, cutting off Shishi and Orochimaru. She then quickly fled, taking the 2 girls with her, and ran next to the cages while running through hand signs in a panic. Orochimaru was taken aback when the boy started to shake. Could it be pain? He was even more taken aback when Shishi started to twitch his head or giggle. Yes, Shishi was laughing like a small child, and then his pupils grew larger and covered his entire eye, causing him to burst into a full-fledged laugh. You're mine now, bitch. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw that Gaia was in his arms, smiling from the fact that she was free of the voice that called itself mother, and the pain in her head. Gaia-chan, you deserve to rest, he considered. Then he rose, holding Gaia in his arms, and started to move. After listening for a while, he laughed. Sakura appears to have given Shishi some coffee. I should really go because I could enjoy watching it. Tamari jumped in and followed them as he gradually sank into his shadow alongside Gaia. The beat down of Orochimaru. Everyone was experiencing a mixture of shock, fear, confusion, and awe. And here they were, watching a caffeine addled demon savage Asanin from behind a blackish barrier Sakura had constructed. Shishi yelled, "Come here you damn scaly bitch," as his whole form grew larger. He was nearly at the top of the barrier, which stood several hundred feet high. A mansion could easily fit inside. With a grimace, Orochimaru sidestepped a massive fist that appeared to be composed entirely of various materials. It crashed through the ceiling, almost sending them both tumbling into the roof, which was already unstable. When Naruto materialized beside Sakura, he saw that Gaia was no longer in his arms. Glancing to the side, he saw Tamari tending to the girl's wound on her chest, which was healing slowly. Shukaku didn't seem to take the time to actually take action at first. And he turned to face Sakura and said, "So you gave him coffee?" "Yes." Sakura muttered, "Sugar and cream," as though she were lost in thought. Whether or not she regretted giving the demon coffee, she did not know. After observing him sever Orochimaru's finger, she concluded that she didn't. "Come here now. You are just delaying the unavoidable. Come here and accurately take death. You won't feel anything at first, but things will get worse the harder you try." Ha 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 ha. His arms were made of blades that hung from hideous things that were meant to be his fingers, and he swung them about as though they were a million whips. It was official. Orochimaru was afraid. Shishi had just cut off his left arm, and the Yuki was eating away at his body, making it impossible for him to regenerate himself. Seeing that he should probably get this over with quickly, Shishi roared and threw more material at the Sannin. Mostly a desk, more Zanbato, and a bunch of paper airplanes. Weary and in agony, Orochimaru just about made it out alive before losing his right arm from the elbow down. "It's time to retreat," he yelled, growling. With the exception of Tayuya, his 4 bodyguards swiftly removed the barrier and attempted to approach Orochimaru, but the Anbu stopped them. With an even deeper growl, he fled, leaving only 2 of his guards behind. The burly man and the man with the 6 arms were attempting to buy their master some time to flee, but the Anbu managed to temporarily subdue them. They then advanced to the 2nd level of the curse mark, which increased the ANBU's difficulty level. Naruto gave a whistle and told 2 demons to deal with the thugs. 2 demon wannabes fighting 2 real demons seemed pretty impressive. Naruto yelled, "Quick, he's getting away," and gestured to Orochimaru. Then he turned to see that they were going to take Karen and Tayuya. Not them. As he approached them, he called, "Leave them." He turned to face Tayuya, whose scowl betrayed her fear but also her willingness to fight. She gave him another angry look and said, "Is your name Tayuya?" But winced a little. "That sounds like a yes to me. I'm Naruto, and I think your friend is currently residing in my house. Her name is Kin, and she talks a lot about you," he said, putting out his hand as she appeared confused. Kin? Is she still alive?" She exhaled as though she didn't believe it. "You have to be telling lies," she muttered as she shook her head. Orochimaru declared her death. She was killed by a... Abruptly, she recognized the person standing in front of her. She growled, "He told me you killed her." Her form vanished from view and she materialized in front of him, intent on striking his chest with a kunai. There was no kunai where her hand should have met his chest. Rather, the man she was going to stab had different eyes, and the same kunai was pressed to her neck. Eyes that made her feel afraid. "I would advise against repeating that. Do you not think I'm real? All right." As she started to disappear beneath the pool of darkness that had appeared beneath her and the other redhead, he spoke in a demonic voice, "Allow me to show you, Tayuya." As Kin felt herself sink into the warmth and comfort of Naruto's dark domain, he continued, "Tell Kin to make sure the kids stay asleep, and that she has permission to fight should anyone come into the house." A needle. A little thing somewhere was laughing uncontrollably as he blasted, sliced, threw, and bit all of his enemies. Although killing people was strange, he had long since gotten used to it. Mostly when he and Shishi were high on caffeine. Returning to the fight, he bit his feet and tucked his hands in before rolling into a ball and slashing a few of the legs he passed with his new blade. He was soon blasting everything and anyone unfortunate enough to be in his line of sight, letting his blasters peek out while he was still rolling. Then he leapt up and crashed into some random nin's chest, blasting until he was reduced to the consistency of cheese with a human shape before drilling through some flesh. A random kunoichi materialized behind him, undecided as to whether or not to attack the small blue beast. With a start, Stitch turned to face her and exclaimed, "Marponen Shidzi." Strangely enough, she felt that familiar sting of being insulted. "What the fuck did you just say?" the woman demanded, to which Stitch retaliated by leaping at her and giving her a punch to the stomach that sent her flying into an unidentified wall. Having a little fun after waiting for a good fight for years, Stitch laughed and carried on with his battle. It's true that Shishi was an excellent sparring partner, but having a friend who was a little too predictable wasn't very enjoyable. Estate Namikaze. Kin let out a sigh and started tidying her new master's living room. It had a fireplace, 3 couches, a portrait of a smiling blonde man she recognized as the Yondaime Hokage, and a woman with red hair. It was large, probably large enough to accommodate a whole party. Her master said it was a portrait of the family. The first day she didn't get it, but later on, she realized the woman's hand was on her stomach. The outfit of her maid caused some unwelcome wind to reach her skirt. That was what the girl from Akio wanted her to wear. Every time Naruto saw her, he would tremble and breathe a little uneasily, and she could tell that he was holding himself back. She let out another sigh. She didn't particularly detest her work. To be honest, she preferred cleaning the place to working for Orochimaru in any capacity, which is why she loved it. The fact that there wasn't much to do disturbed her. Yes, cleaning and training were involved once Naruto gave his approval, but that seemed to be the extent of it. The 2 little demon children were sleeping now, so they weren't creating any mess. No mess, no need to stay put. She was bored now since there was nothing to do. Thump flop when Kin heard what sounded like two bodies falling, one on the floor, the other on the kucha. She yelled in shock. Fuck! A familiar curse erupted. She turned and saw the same head of hair that had caused her concern for the previous 2 weeks. She cried, "Tayuya!" and sprinted in her direction. The redhead spun around, barely having time to brace herself before a black blur tackled her. "Kin?" Tayuya inquired, catching the girl's barely audible words as she began to speak. "Well, I'm very happy to see you. Have you ever met Naruto-san? Oh my god, is he the reason you're here?" Karen. Abruptly, she noticed the blur beside Karen. Whatever happened to her? Kin inquired with concern. Tayuya scowled while in a mild daze. Orochimaru used her for his stupid resurrection. Shaking her head, she turned to face Kin. "How on earth do you manage to survive?" Orochimaru declared, "That Uzumaki kid killed you." "Oh. Well, Naruto." Sama intervened and gave this Uchiha guy a severe beating just before he tried to rape me. It was fantastic. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. He reassured me that everything would be alright, which calmed my fears, and then he just let me be. Then he slapped me after overhearing Dosu and me and threatening the foolish mother. Then he asked me to tell him everything we were going to do, and after that he made Dosu apologize to me. After that, well, I kind of became his slave," Kin concluded, blushing a little from shame. Meanwhile, Tayuya was staring blankly. Her face twisted with rage. All this time. You were his plaything?" she demanded. "Nah. Naruto. Sama is a better gentleman than all the men of Otobakure combined. He hasn't engaged in any perverse behavior. Unless, of course, Akio-san is with him. Usually, they're in the bedroom together," she said, flushed. When Tayuya noticed that Karen was groaning, she twitched a little but remained silent. "Karen. Chan," she called out as she approached the girl who was awake. Kin interrupted Tayuya's movement by stating, "There's a first aid in the kitchen. Bottom drawer next to the refrigerator." With a nod, Tayuya hurried to get the first aid. Stepping back into the living room, she saw Kin employing a diagnosis jutsu. With a smile on her face, Kin said, "She's fine. Besides having a small fever, she'll be okay now." Karen's red eyes slowly opened and she blinked in confusion, asking, "Where am I?" She looked over and saw that her friend and sister were looking concerned. "Kin. Chan. Tayuya. Nay. Where are we?" she muttered, confused. "You're in Naruto. Sama's home," exclaimed Kin, merrily pointing with her hand. She said firmly, getting a nod from Karen and Tayuya, "This place is pretty big, so make sure that I'm with you before you go exploring by yourself." Tayuya then became aware of Kin's attire. She yelled angrily, "Did that bastard make you wear that shit?" Kin shook her head, looking down at herself. "No, it was a girl by the name of Akio." Kin shrugged and said, "She's nice and all, but I think she's bi." It didn't concern her what kind of girl Akio was. Naturally, she would occasionally experience an odd delusion surrounding her. For some reason, she turned herself into a fox with tails and ears. Thus far, Naruto seems excited about it. It's funny how amusing yet adorable things can arouse people. Naruto. For what felt like the 12th time that day, Naruto let out a sneeze. He wiped his nose and thought, "Seriously, I think someone's making a speech about me." He called forth Red Queen and proceeded to slaughter foes as if they were composed of butter. He had a strange urge to cut through flesh, though he wasn't sure why. Of course, not through the people he knew, but he was still determined to just battle something. Anything at all. Naruto's eyes widened, appearing slightly insane, and he let a feral grin cross his lips. "I can't recall the last time I had so much fun," he thought to himself as he continued to murder his foes. "Go on, now, fight," he yelled as he noticed some of them beginning to flee. He was about to scream some more, but as he growled, he saw two snakes entering the village. He muttered, "Bingo," as he dashed in the direction of the snakes. He changed into a demonic fox again halfway there, albeit one that was smaller than the one he was during the eclipse, and he leapt in the direction of the snakes. He struck one of the snakes with his blade on one of his tails and started to chop and scrape through it. It let out a long hiss before it and its friend were trampled under a big toad, and Jiraiya was perched atop said toad. "You naive!" Naruto yelled, "You stupid pervert, they were my prey," and shook his fist at the Sannin. A woman with red hair was tugging on her grandfather's sleeve and pointing up at the sky that represented the underworld. Down in the underworld, inside the door that was locked and sealed with the strongest locks on the entire planet. Do you see that? That is my little one. Look at how amazing he is. And my sword is with him. Her red hair turning gray, she yelled at the elderly man. He grinned at the sky, a little jealous, and nodded. He wished he was a fighter as well. Meanwhile, Shinigami was sobbing as more souls started to fall. Kami, why? If this has to do with your poodle, then I apologized. It's not my fault. It was staring at me funny. And it urinated on my robes twice, he cried aloud. Shaking his head, Naruto sighed and noted that there were fewer enemies than normal. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw a man streaking in his direction. The man fell with a cry of pain as a shower of ice. Senbon was launched from above before he could get close enough. His mouth dropped when he looked up and saw Haku floating in midair, a crown of ice on her head, ice on her back forming wings, and ice claws covering her arms. Holy angel, was all Naruto could say, his expression confused. Haku blushed and grinned. Thanks, Naruto-kun. I'm hoping all is well with you. The blonde, still unable to think clearly, mumbled, okay. Me. Happy. Angel. There was a slight sinking from where the guy had just fallen, which startled him out of his drool. Glancing over, he saw that, having just decapitated the nin, Inari had gladly ripped off his formal clothes and was wearing a gray armor underneath, his own Zanbato stabbed into the ground. The armor was made up of a gray forearm protector, a dark gray breastplate, and chainmail around his neck. Holy crap. Hello. Ni-san Naruto. Mom, have you seen her? Naruto shook his head, his mouth having most likely already pierced through the earth. Oh. Hopefully, though, she will be present. She can be a little frightening when she's upset. A rather ominous blur yelled, get back here. Tsunami had on a gauntlet on her left arm, black shorts, mesh under her breastplate, and a dark blue breastplate. She was pursuing a terrified Suna.nin who was sprinting as if the devil were pursuing him. How dare you hurt my boy? Naruto then became aware of the cut along Inari's left leg. I see. Naruto.ni.san, huh? How did your eyes go? Nothing more than a passing skill. Now, Inari, let's see what you can accomplish with that blade. With a sly smile on his face, Naruto answered, gripping his two blades. With a shared smile, Inari and Naruto started slaying the remaining adversaries. Thus, it had finally come to an end. Naruto had to stop Stitch after the cowardly escape of Orochimaru. The little blue guy waved and nodded, then took off running toward the Namikaze estate. On their first day together, it was decided that he would move in and stay there permanently. It was pretty damn annoying after that. Tying up the opponent, informing the civilians that it was all over, and making matters worse, a nin nearby questioned him about the demon foxes. Without yelling at the people who irritated him, he simply shrugged and said, my summons. Then he carried on trying to help as much as possible, primarily the redhead living in his home. He moaned and ran a hand through his hair, saying, please calm yourself. How the fuck can I be calm? I'm marked by Orochimaru, and I already told you fuckers what I know about Orochi. Teme. Now when he gets his injuries fixed, he'll activate the curse mark and kill me. And like I said, I can take it off, you just have to trust me. You're asking me to strip for you, fucker. I said you had to let me see your shoulder, not your whole body. The conversation went something like this. Well, I still don't believe you can actually take it off, retard. Before everything calmed down, Tayuya and Karen resided in Naruto's house for a while. When it did, Naruto asked Sandaime if he could protect the girls. You could never say no to a very nice girl like Kin when you were her kind master. She used the puppy dog eyes in particular. Thus, Tayuya and Karen were temporarily residing in his home, and the Sandaime had no choice but to become slaves when he did ask them. Tayuya was obviously not pleased with it. When Akio jumped in and exclaimed, hell yeah! Naruto was about to respond negatively to Karen's question about whether they had to wear the same as Kin. He snarled for what seemed like a millionth time, I told you already, you just have to trust me. The twins would have been wealthy due to Tayuya's profanity if she hadn't brought Nell and Shippo to Sakura's house. Naruto finally had enough and unleashed Red Queen, revving it up and slicing straight into Tayuya's shoulder, saying, I barely know you, you idiot. The redhead let out a cry and collapsed, holding onto her shoulder while the seal started to break. She was expecting pain, so when it didn't come, she was perplexed. For the first time in a long time, in fact, it felt like a terrible substance was being washed away. What? She muttered as she peered at her torn shirt, revealing her smooth skin. Not a solitary speck of the mark remained. That awful presence in the back of her mind was gone. She experienced the sensation that no one was observing her for the first time. She was unrestricted. N.Nay. Chan. The mark is gone. Karen exclaimed, rubbing the area where Ryuya's mark had been and glancing at her shoulder. Naruto mumbled and sighed as he put Red Queen away. He put his hands behind his back and sat back down on the couch, saying, "And she said I couldn't. Well, I showed her." After about 3 seconds, Ryuya tackled him while she was crying and giving him a strong hug with her face on his chest. Naruto grinned as she sobbed into his chest. "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." He made little circles on her back and said, "Don't worry. I'm happy to help if it's within my abilities." She took one more sniff and then went limp. When Naruto realized she was asleep, he arched an eyebrow. That is, in fact, a side effect of using Red Queen. Breaking the seal completely. Might as well let her. His thoughts were interrupted when he saw that Hikari was using his other arm. Akio was now behind him after using her shadow weaving to place her chest behind his back. Karen was sitting next to him with her head on his shoulder. And Kin was on her knees with her head on his lap. He was not sure why, but all of a sudden he felt like going to sleep, and letting the girls sleep on him. A familiar voice said, "Well, this is interesting." Shaking his head slightly, he noticed Sakura standing there grinning. She teased, getting a small growl from Naruto. "Don't you look happy, surrounded by women and all?" "Kidding, kidding. Anyway, I've been looking around the village and found that people really seem to be kissing up to you. They're making a lot of effort into not only loving you, but I overheard some of them saying something of actually celebrating with you." Sakura's eye twitched, and he grinned. "Hey. So no more torture? Oh well, I guess they know better than to mess with me from now on. And I'm guessing your mom is still screeching." "I don't get it. I tell her that I learned these things from a guy the first met, and she goes ballistic and mumbles about demons. I wish she would just shut up. She's been trying to get Hokage Sama to speak to her, but he's been ignoring her. She'll more than likely accuse me of being the cause of this. Well, might as well make her squeal like a pig," he giggled. She muttered the last line to herself. "Hey, Naruto, I may not be happy with her and all, but she's still my mom, and she's been acting weird." He questioned as if he were requesting information. "Did you know she once wanted to skin me alive?" When he finally said something that Sakura understood, she almost choked on her own saliva. What? She muttered, astonished. "No, seriously. She really did try to skin me alive. Only got up to my elbow before the Anbu were there. Unfortunately, she got away and never suffered the consequences." Naruto responded with a sigh. "Very mean lady, never really liked me. Not that I care what she thinks of me, but it gets annoying every now and then." Sakura sat down and tried to take in everything that had just been said. "So mom." Confusion gave way to acceptance, which was followed by rage. She attempted to murder Naruto. Even worse, she attempted to torment him. She pondered angrily. He gave her a big smile and said, "Don't worry, she can't do jack shit now. Though, it's nice that you care so much about me." Sakura gave a forced smile in return. He laughed and thought, "I guess she doesn't see her mother in the same light as before. Does this mean that I'm getting darker? Meh, not so much," he thought. He sighed as he vanished into shadows and left the group of girls, saying, "I should probably do something. I hate wasting time. Then again, this isn't a waste, but I still want to do something." She pointed at the girls, who were all cuddling up to Akio, and said, "Wow. I think just about any guy would have killed to be in your spot." With a twisted smile, he replied, "Yeah well, I'm more of an action type of guy." Sakura became enraged and gave him a backslap to the head. She hissed, "Baka," as Naruto pouted like a little kid. "Sakura," he complained like a young child, making the Haruno laugh. "Not funny, nay. Chan." He complained, but he still had a smile on his face as he went to the kitchen. "You hungry?" "Nah, I already ate. So how have you been so far?" "Nothing really, I help out. People go out of their way to alleviate me of the work. It's annoying, but I always find ways to do some work." Transformation jutsu do that type of crap. She ate a grape from the fruit basket and said, huh. Shishi showed up with the twins on his back just as Naruto was ready to start eating the ramen he had made. Before he passed out, he mumbled, please, save me. He appeared quite tired and had a pale appearance. The twins proceeded to bounce like a trampoline on his back without seeming to notice. After almost a day, Naruto let out a sigh for what seemed like the 30th time that day. As Naruto carefully removed the hammer and nails from the elderly woman's hand, she said, no, I insist. I really would like to help. The elderly woman grinned at him and said, are you sure, Naruto? Sama. I mean, I honestly believe that I can do this myself. He laughed and replied, if you wish to work as well, you can work alongside me. I've been doing little here, and just because my father was the Yondaime doesn't mean I'm gonna sit back and watch others do all the work. Besides, I've been itching to do something for you. You've always been nice to me, it's only fair to help you out. Replied Naruto. At the moment, he was assisting the landlady in fixing his former house, which had been all but destroyed by one of Orochimaru's snakes. Are you sure? She questioned tremblingly, giving Naruto another grin. He grinned wickedly as the landlady grinned, adding, more sure than the fact that Sasuke is doing little to help out. The last, loyal, Uchiha was reportedly recovering from his fights. The man was discovered alive, but bruised and bloody. He claimed he didn't know who had attacked him when he woke up. That he was knocked unconscious by a backhand attack. But if the bite and scratch marks were any indication, someone had been tormenting him for some time. Shishi had been grinning for a full 24 hours, but no one ever noticed. Well then, I suppose I will help. Thank you Naruto, Sama. He prodded her side, laughing. Hey, you always called me Naruto, and I don't want that to change just yet. She gave a small laugh, nodded, and carried on. The building was nearly restored after Naruto created a few clones and gave them orders to gather additional supplies. Now they just needed to wait for the paint to dry, and Naruto's clones were using wind manipulation to take care of that. Before long, Naruto's clones were assisting other nin and civilians in any way they could. People were surprised to see almost 100 Narutos in one place at first, but they quickly exploited the situation and offered assistance as well. Still, there was a lot of agitation in the interrogation section. It seems that Shishi was able to enter and torment every prisoner he saw, even as they begged for forgiveness. Ibiki almost gave the demon a hug, but instead she gave him a quick pat on the back. That in and of itself was sufficient to win Shishi some respect, since the last time Ibiki had given a back pat was when Naruto had been present and had assisted in determining whether or not a man had sexually assaulted an innocent girl. When he threw Ibiki out and locked the door, the guy did, and Naruto tormented him for 12 hours. A Naruto clone, meanwhile, was abruptly drawn into an alleyway. Come on in, a voice growled. The clone abruptly felt a kunai sever its neck, saying, I need to talk to you. It then dispelled, allowing the memories to revert to the original. The true Naruto didn't show up at the alley's entrance for another 15 minutes. When he got to the dim alley, he said, Hey Anko-chan. The same woman he had just called out suddenly pinned him to the wall and said, I'm guessing you want to talk to me. Gaki. She hissed menacingly, but Naruto could sense the trepidation beneath. Her voice faltered as she mentioned her own seal. I've heard you can rip off seals. No doubt you know about my own little problem. Take it off or I rip your neck open. He arched an eyebrow and said, Really? Well, that'll be interesting, but will you really carry out through the threat? With a knowing expression on his face, with more intimidation, Anko drove her kunai deeper into his neck, causing blood to trickle onto the blade. Naruto's smile didn't even falter even then. She remained silent for a brief moment before giving in. She fell, almost hitting the floor, her shoulders trembling, but Naruto's arms encircled her, keeping her in place while she sobbed into his shoulder. Please, Jay. Just free me from this. I'll be your whore, I'll do whatever you want. If you want to fuck me, I'll gladly bend over. You want me to suck you off, I'll open up. Just please take this damn thing off, she begged with a scream. Naruto maintained a stoic expression throughout, and Anko was afraid he wouldn't take any action. At last, he gave her a small, unexpected smile and a kiss on the lips, which she secretly found to be very enjoyable. Having never experienced a kiss before, this one left her feeling cherished and desired. Regretfully, the seal sensed her joy and briefly started to hurt her. He unsealed Red Queen and whispered into her ear, I think that's all I want for now. You want to do something else? Then it's up to you, Anko. Chan. He accelerated it and took a swath through Anko's shoulder, tearing the jacket but sparing the skin. A snake slowly slithered out of Anko's shoulder, torn to pieces, and sucked into Red Queen. Anko's face was finally calm as she fell limp into his arms and slept after it was over. He kissed her again and whispered, sleep well, Anko. Chan. Then he made a clone and sent him to bring Anko home. Sighing, Naruto strolled through the streets. Now that it was better, people didn't seem to be staring at him as much. Sadly, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it seemed like every girl was making an extra effort to catch his attention. Heck, one of them had on a more exposed version of his previous jumpsuit. It had an orange jacket similar to his old one, which was open to reveal a black shirt that exposed her belly, and an orange skirt that barely covered her thighs. He stared at the outfit for a good 3 minutes, then gave her a nervous little smile and turned to leave. Overall, it was a bit out of the ordinary. And now he had a whole group of girls stalking him, along with a couple of kunoichi he could almost feel licking his behind. With a sigh, he teleported back to his house, the only location where he could be safe from the hordes of fangirls. Then 2 tiny black lumps tackled him and yelled, Naguto, Sama. He said to them, hey Nell, Shippo. How've you two been? Shippo nodded in agreement as Nell said, fine. We's been draw.ing. Naruto could hear the faint sound of a brush being used upstairs and saw scribbles on a few of the walls. Kin appeared to be starting to tidy it up already. Trying not to sound angry, Naruto said, well, next time you should use some paper rather than the walls. It would be nice to have a clean house, you know. Come on, I mean. Even if it was done accidentally, he didn't want Thesa, which had once belonged to his parents, to be damaged. The twins exclaim, oh Kai, in unison before putting Naruto down and leaving to color some more. Naturally, this time on paper. As he heads upstairs, he discovers that Kin is, in fact, using a sponge and a bucket of water to clean the walls. Naruto guessed the twins started around the time he left to help out the village based on the amount of sweat on her forehead and the wet walls. He patted her shoulder and said, take a break, Kin. I'll leave a few clones to finish this up. The brunette nodded appreciatively and rinsed the sponge once more. After creating the clones, Naruto went back to his father's office, which he now owned. The room was surrounded by a few seals, all of which were either suppression seals, explosion seals, or a few storage seals. He creates 2 clones and gives them instructions to tidy up after complaining about the mess. Then his mind turned to the sisters with red hair that he was looking after. It seems that Orochimaru was looking for someone who could sense chakra far more keenly than the average shinobi. Although Karen was among the first to use that power, her chakra control was quite poor. Heck, she could sense all the different Anbu circling the village. The issue was that Naruto could feel her chakra beginning to slow down and eventually stop entirely. If that were to occur, she would have no chance of becoming a ninja. However, she was fine aside from the chakra. Tayuya excelled in genjutsu, particularly when utilizing her flute's sound. She also had a great taste in music, which helped to soothe the twins to sleep. She was quite noisy and afraid when she first arrived at his house, mostly because she believed Orochimaru would kill her at any moment. But after her release, she developed into a more obedient. That is to say, she eagerly jumped at the chance to win Naruto over. She would smile and say something about how she practically owed him her life when he asked about this. He would merely shrug and smile at her, occasionally failing to notice her intense blush and her habit of fixating on him. He sighed as he brushed a single line into one and slapped it onto the back of a clone after taking a look at a few of the seals nearby. After that, the clone was destroyed by the equivalent of 20 firecrackers, while the other clone gave Naruto a strange look. Naruto whispered to the surviving clone, okay, now I know I'm crazy. I'm now starting to use my own seals on myself. True, you guys are clones, but it's still me. You think I'm crazy? I dunno, boss. You've been doing that a lot lately, and you seem to think more on the fact that you might be turning crazy. You might want to see a psychiatrist or something. Maybe. I really need to do something. And that's another thing, why the hell am I always itching to do something? Heck, romping with Akio barely phases me now, and I get out of the house a lot more than I ever did. Maybe you're getting overconfident. Yeah. Naruto trailed off as he struck the clone's head with a kunai, instantly dispelling it. He teleported to the doorbell in the hopes that it would ring and require his attention. Regretfully, it was an Enbu disguised as a tiger. Oh. Tenzo. Let me guess, it's the council. Yeah. And please call me Tora when I'm in the uniform, Naruto-san. He muttered, okay. Let's go, before grabbing the Anbu by the shoulder and teleporting to the council chambers. Sakura appeared next to him out of her own shadow, and Naruto arched an eyebrow. Sakura gave him an annoyed look as he smirked and said, I bet this has to do with your mom. I don't know, it might. Now please stop talking and let's end this. After exclaiming, okie dokie, they went into the chambers and took a position in front of the Hokage and the other council members. Hi, he exclaimed with joy as Sakura bowed respectfully. She grinned quietly to herself, knowing that Naruto still has a high regard for other people. He noticed that some of the girls were wearing a little more perfume, and they were saying things like, hello, Naruto. Sama. He said, his smile remaining unwavering even as his thoughts started to grow gloomy, I think Naruto will do. Don't assume that I'll just forgive everyone. He thought angrily, you still have to pray for the rest of your miserable lives before you're forgiven. He paused to consider, then shrugged. It's official, with a sigh, I'm turning evil. He glanced at Sarutobi. So, you called us Gigi? With a calm lighting of his pipe, Sarutobi grinned nervously. Yes, Naruto. It appears that Haruno Asako has doubts regarding your interactions with her daughter. Naruto turned to face Asako, who was making every effort to frighten him with her intense gaze. You still want my skin or what? He wanted to ask, raising an eyebrow. Still, he came very close to saying it. Is that accurate? And why do you think that I'm the only one with these abilities? He asked her, drawing a startled expression from the other council members. You mean there are others? Inquired a civilian, who appeared extremely excited about the existence of another shadow clan in Konoha. Even though shadow jutsu wasn't strictly restricted to a certain bloodline, using them was extremely dangerous, and few people even dared to use them. It is possible to become imprisoned by your own shadow and never emerge from it, or it is possible to stay there for almost a lifetime before being expelled from the shadow dimension. Despite their laziness, the Nara clan was one of the few that had the courage to keep using them. In addition to requiring a lot of chakra, shadow jutsu was also quite delicate. If you even slightly lose focus, the outcome could be entirely arbitrary. If you were making a black string instead of a spike, you would be lucky. The smallest error you could possibly make is that. There are 4 in all of Konoha, counting Naruto and me. Additionally, 2 more will shortly start their training. Sakura crossed her arms and spoke. She continued, her eyes closed as she anticipated the responses. Should you wish to know more, then you won't be getting it from me. While the majority of the council was conversing animatedly, Shikaku appeared to be thinking as usual, or was he even asleep? It was difficult to tell because he had his eyes closed. Asako appeared dissatisfied that the topic of conversation was straying from their original purpose, and Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. I think we ought to return to the current task. Who taught my daughter these skills, mostly? Called Asako, grabbing everyone's attention in the room. That would be a friend of mine. Raising his hand as though he were in class, Naruto spoke. It's likely in my estate, but I don't know where he is. He constantly tries to liven things up a little bit by getting into mischief. But in the end, he's kind. Danzo inquired, can we meet him? Naruto simply gave a slow shake of his head and shrugged. I apologize. Shishi-kun, as far as he is aware, detests staying in one spot longer than is necessary. Additionally, it appears from his whining that he despises council meetings. Sakura shrugged and said. Something said, but he might make an exception. From above, as everyone turned to face the ceiling, they saw Shishi sticking upside down to the wall, his arms folded, eyebrow raised. He waved a peace sign and said, Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hey Shishi. Naruto greeted them by nodding his head, which was the only genuine respect he showed them. After returning the nod, Shishi moved to stand beside Sakura and put an arm around the girl's waist. The demon giggled as she leaned into his embrace and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. He turned to face a very cheeky smiling Asako, whose mouth was hanging open. Hi there, Haruno-san. I hope today is going well for you. Asako gave Shishi a glare while shaking her head. She said in a statement, so you're the one who has been training my daughter. Shishi gave a nod, his smile remaining constant throughout. You don't seem like much of a shinobi. I'm not. Heck, I only have loyalty to a select few, including Hokage. Sama here, he shrugged. Sakura. Shan has excellent chakra control, which is why I saw potential in her. Furthermore, she's a natural. Sakura blushed from the admiration, and Naruto winced. It took him 4 years to reach his current level of skill and 2 years to learn how to use the shadows. In another 2 years, he wouldn't be shocked if she surpassed his shadow wielding skills. Are you saying you are unloyal to Konoha? Shishi nodded in response to Danzo's question. You're correct. But I swear never to harm this village again while Sarutobi Sama is in power. He nodded to Sarutobi, who returned the gesture. Danzo turned to face Sarutobi and questioned, is it really a good idea to have someone who isn't devoted to Konoha? He might, when the time comes, stab us in the back. Something tugged at Shishi's thoughts. He had the impression that something was attempting to put him to sleep. He raised an eyebrow, glancing at the man wearing bandages. A smirk appeared on his face as he thought, he stopped being human. He turned to face Naruto, who reciprocated by bending in close. It's quite interesting, that man. And what kind of man is he? Can't tell you much besides the fact that he sees emotions as a nuisance. Naruto shot a curious glance at Shishi and growled back. This shall be interesting. Shishi muttered as he returned to his girl's embrace. She watched Danzo closely, wondering what the man had done to pique Shishi's curiosity. Most likely something negative. Shishi.kun typically enjoys exposing the evil intentions of others. This could be fascinating. Her eyes glowed slightly as she considered. Shushi is a man of his word, much like Naruto. Specifically, he told me that he would remain faithful to me as long as there is no harm done to the people he loves. With another puff of smoke trailing from his lips, the Hokage spoke. In my opinion, I believe I can trust Shishi.san here with my life, as I have already done so once. With a smile on his face, Shishi bent. He uttered, sounding suddenly much more mature than he had just a few moments before, I am honored you trust me so much, Hokage. Sama. At these moments, Naruto questioned Shishi's age and the reason Sakura thought it was attractive that he seemed older. She mentioned that she thought he sounded very wise. So a wise sounding guy is liked by a smart girl. Who would have thought of that, damn it? Naruto smirked and thought. I don't understand why you feel the need to be upset about Sakura getting stronger. She will require all the strength she can muster as a shinobi. Gazing at Asako, Naruto inquired. As Sakura created a hammer of shadows and threw it at him, he remarked, not to mention it seems that Shishi and her are rather close. Ow. Asako growled, because I don't trust him or you. Shishi laughed, observing how strange she appeared. Well, lady, I'm not really asking for your trust. I want to train her, that's why. Not to add that I'll only coach her and probably anybody else that she and I think deserving. Without allowing for a suggestion of any kind, Shishi called. He was clearly not going to follow orders from anyone there, not even Naruto. Because, in the end, he would gladly defy Sarutobi and pay attention to Naruto if he had to follow either of their orders. In the end, the child deserved it. Naruto asked, anyway, is there anything else you will be needing, Gigi? As he turned to face Sarutobi. Miss Momochi will be living with you in your estate, as I told you yesterday, Hiruzen stated, nodding. Yeah, her stuff is being taken care of as we speak. One final item. Miss Gaia appears to want to talk to you in your house. After giving a nod, Naruto put an arm around the snuggling couple and teleported them away. Paperwork will accompany this. Rubbing his temples, Sarutobi thought, I just know it. Before long, there was a lot of noise coming from the council chambers, and he sighed once more. A while back. Alongside Tamari and Gaia. I'm still not sure I understand it, Gaia thought, confusedly glancing at Tamari. Tamari was presumably attempting to make her look presentable. It was Tamari's way of saying, I want to make you pretty. Tamari exclaimed, or you could wear this, with excitement. She extended her hand slightly past her knees and held up a stunning fitting gray dress with some black flowers encircling the arms. Tamari, I don't see why I have to change my clothes, sighed Gaia. Tamari had shown her 5 dresses so far, and she didn't stop her sister in the first 4 because she wanted to change the scary, hostile maniac Tamari had once been. Because now you have a boy to impress, silly, Tamari stated in a straightforward manner. Gaia looked at her blankly, as if there were a question mark hovering over her head. I mean Naruto-san, she declared firmly, receiving Gaia's nod in response. Still, I don't see how changing clothes will help. You need to look him in the eye. Please understand that Gaia is incredibly beautiful, however, the way you dress is far too gender neutral. In addition, they don't demonstrate enough. Gaia asked, looking perplexed, are you saying I should look more like the rest of the girls? She wasn't sure why she was even asking, to be honest. Taking care of her hair was enough, right? But I believe Naruto won't mind how I... Nonsense. She was interrupted by Temari, who took the younger girl by the wrist and dragged her with him. She grabbed a random girl along the way and said, come with us, I need a second opinion. With a hint of surprise at this happening suddenly, the girl said, oh, okay. I don't think. Gaia began, but Temari interrupted her once more. She doesn't have anything important to do, so don't worry, correct, miss? Hanata, was the bashful reply. And I guess it's alright. The girl said, I was just going for a walk. Alright. Let's move now. After that, they departed to acquire additional clothing for Gaia. After meeting the couple in front of Sakura's residence, Naruto bid them farewell and went back to his own house. Gaia was on the front door, dressed in an outfit that left him speechless. She was dressed in a black skirt that bared her thighs, black high-heeled sandals, and a long, sleeved black shirt that fit her body beautifully. She also had tanuki ears on her hairband. When Naruto struggled to think clearly, he said, whoa. Just, wow. Gaia read the silence and his hanging mouth as a warning. He probably finds this annoying. Temari, you're so annoying. I would kill you if you weren't my sister and I didn't want to change. Even so, when I cover them in sand, it will be a long time before you can wear new underwear, she thought angrily. Beautiful. Still staring, Naruto managed to slur out, was he salivating? Her cheeks turned slightly pink as she thought, never mind, I think I'll hug you instead. Naruto realized then that there was a person behind Gaia. Hanata was that someone, and his jaw dropped almost to the floor. She had on a black skirt, dark blue stockings, an open black sweater that showed off her figure, and a dark blue shirt underneath. But the thing that really caught his eye was that she was wearing the hood up. There were fox ears atop the hood. The final straw was that. He passed out with a silly smile on his face, the image of the two stunning women in front of him searing into his brain for eternity. When Hanata and Gaia realized Naruto liked it, they exchanged glances and both blushed. Naruto discovered he was in his bed when he awoke. Before he had a chance to stand up, he noticed that Haku, Hanata, Hikari, Akio, Kin, Tayuya, Karen, and Gaia had quickly come to him and were asking, Naruto-kun, Sama, are you alright? They all started fussing over him, and he blinked. The girls stared at him in confusion as he muttered, I don't want to be dead. There are angels all around me. So I'm dead, is that correct? I want to live, not die, at home. I have my own angels. His tone abruptly changed to one of sadness, until Shishi's face materialized. He grinned foolishly and exclaimed, ah, how cute, never mind, I know you wouldn't be allowed in heaven. Naruto sighed and pushed Shishi's head aside. Smart ass. Shishi complained, but his smile persisted. You were out the second you realized exactly what it was the girls were wearing. Indeed, Hanata and Gaia were still dressed in those gorgeous garments when Naruto turned to look. Can you not change out of those anytime soon?
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.